real main focus tonight is letting you all ask questions, have a voice tonight, because I know that there's a lot of concern out there for all of our parents across New Jersey, not just in Belleville, but so the whole thing tonight is to get this through, give you some ideas and some things that we've been talking about. Those of you who've known me for more than 5 minutes know that I'm a straight shooter, so you're going to hear it straight tonight from me. We also are taking your feedback, obviously, on some of the things that we need to address with concern to these health and physical education requirements that are now changing. We do have some visitors in the audience tonight from out of district, some superintendents, assistant superintendents from other districts, so I welcome them. We have some of our board members here tonight, welcome. And we also have the two individuals that have helped really put this together with me, and that is Mr. Coban, who's our supervisor of elementary education, and Ms. Shanklin, who's our director of elementary education. So I just want to recognize them before we get started. And I also, she's in the back somewhere, but Mrs. Kelleher, our Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships. Ms. Kelleher, wave to everybody. We could all thank her for the incredible food tonight. Thank you, Ms. Kelleher. Again, an open dialogue. Also tonight, I'm absolutely not going to tell you what to or what to not say, but we want to keep it respectful, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. Also know that there are recordings of this happening, so just be aware of what you're saying and what you're doing. I also would like to thank our IT team that's here tonight. They're here with me all the time. They're very afraid that this isn't going to go well. That's why they're here. Are you going to? Yeah, let's dim some lights. We'll post this for everyone. And obviously the conversation doesn't stop here. But in 2020, we were first talking about the changes in design to all of this. Oh, I'm sorry. And we also have Ms. Demikoff here, the Director of Curriculum, and Dr. Dalia, who is our Director of Personnel and Operations. Sorry, you guys must have snuck in on me. All right, let's go to the first. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about very quickly is respecting one another tonight. I know we're all adults, and there are some children here as well. Of course, that's your purview to have them here. I guess if we're going to teach it, right, it's okay if the children hear our conversation about it. That's the whole idea. But just to remind all of you that we need to respect one another. We all have different views on this. This is a very volatile topic for many different reasons. We are all parents, and I'm a parent of 4 myself, so just so you all know that. But I think that's important because all of our views may be a little different. They may be a little attenuated in different times or different portions of this. But I think tonight is more about listening, right? And also maybe dispelling some of the things that are kind of circulating out there. Again, not just in Belleville, but in the entire state. I'll probably also give you my opinion a little bit, not on being a parent or parenting or what you should say to your children, but how this all came down from the Commissioner of Education and the Governor's office, and probably what could have been done a little bit better, but unfortunately we're here where we are today to try to address some of these things. And hopefully we get there. Give me the next one, Jeff. Okay? Here is the most important slide, in my opinion, of tonight. And it's one word, and it's communication. Okay? A few of you have reached out to me with regard to policing this over the years moving forward. Okay? First thing I will tell you is that a curriculum as this has been in effect for many, many years. Right? Is it a little different now? Sure, there's a few things that are added. But here's where the communication is extremely important. You communicating with your child communicating with you back as to what has occurred in school so that you then can communicate it back to us. Okay? So for example, even though we'll talk about some of the curriculums and some of the lesson plans and how are you going to be able to opt out. But there are a plethora of things that will be interwoven, all right, in different, different lesson plans and different things that you may not like as a parent. Okay? We can't take care of that situation. We can't address that situation. We cannot have a discussion with you about that unless there's communication in it. So I'll give you a perfect example. There were a few websites that we offer to our students who may want to accelerate in certain areas. So for example, in Irby, an independent reading book, right? We have a website that says, hey, here's some free online reading things that are approved. If you want to move on, you pick out a title. There's thousands and thousands of titles, all right? You as a parent may see one title like, I don't know about this. I don't think we're ready for this. Another parent might be like, this is fine. It's not a big deal. However, we can't police every little thing that's out there, just like I can't police the social media that your kids are on or the sites that they are going to. The only way we can do that is by communicating, okay? By communicating together. So you need to let us know. There are plenty of avenues to do that, all right? Whether it's email, phone call, conversation, we're all listed on the website. Your teachers, your principals, all those different areas, okay? So communication is key. And I don't mean communication by not telling me or one of my team members and going on an online forum and telling everybody how horrible it is. You can definitely do that. It's fine. Go on a parent page, Nothing gets accomplished, though, if you don't direct it to me or my team. So if you really want to make a difference, communicate that way, and then go on your online forum and tell everybody how horrible I am. That's fine. Okay? Totally fine. Trust me, 100% fine. But again, my goal is to fix anything if there is an issue. And I will tell you this, and again, if you've known me for 5 minutes, we hold everyone here, teachers, administrators, secretaries, coaches, you name it. We hold everyone accountable for his or her actions here. Everyone. All right? But again, if we don't communicate, I can't help do that. So, very important that slide gets a little bit more time, and it's one word. That's it. I don't need fancy graphics tonight, right? We just need words. Tonight, we're also talking about K to 5. All right, I am going to mention 8th grade for 1 minute because I think that's the one everybody's nervous about, right? But it's really K to 5 tonight. The other curriculums have been in place for a very long time. They're going to be approved this weekend for on Monday for the high school students. Really not much difference there. Not too much, right? I mean, sex ed, high school, don't answer it. Anyway. But tonight we're just talking K to 5. All right. And here's the second most important sign. You ready? We haven't written a thing yet. This team right here in front of you who writes curriculum right here, right, with our teachers, we haven't done a thing yet. All the rumors, they're gonna wrote this, what's going to get, I don't know what everyone's talking about. We haven't done a thing yet. Purposefully waited for tonight to hear what you all have to say, articulate it, think about it, see what we can do, listen to the stakeholders, give you the opportunity in a forum, and now over the summer we'll write it. We'll then meet with our board curriculum committee, and it will be on an agenda, most likely August, putting the team on notice for August, so that our teachers can implement it in September. Nothing has been written. Even though everybody is pointing to forums and whatnot, nothing's been written. Now, is there a skeleton that we've been given, a skeleton set? Or a template from the state? Absolutely. That's what everybody here is really concerned with, right? All that. So that's what we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. All right, Jeff. All right. Here is what everybody missed. And you're definitely not going to be able to read that. I'm just going to read the blue part. Sexual abuse and assault awareness and prevention education. Sexual abuse and assault prevention. This This is the why. This is the why. Okay? This is the why. This is why some of these things needed to be changed. And I apologize in advance if I'm going to get a little bit curt right now with all of you, maybe a little real, talk back and forth a little bit, just so you can understand it. Just so you can understand it. Now, first I'd like to step back and say, this is what the Department of Education should have put out this way. What I'm doing right now is how it should have been put out to you, but it wasn't, and that's okay. So now we're backpedaling, all right? But this is the why. Because I know all of you in here are parents, or most of you, and all of you are gonna sit here and tell me, I talk to my kids about sex. I talk to my kids about stranger danger. I talk to my kids about not being touched in certain places. Well, parent of 4, my wife and I actually teaches this stuff in college for years, professor of public health, okay? There is no way that the majority of people in here, including myself, talk about this type of prevention and sexual abuse as much as you think you do. You all think, including me, that our kids know more than we have told them, okay? Because I'll tell you why. If you told your child, listen, nobody touches you in the private area, did you ever ask your child what a private area is? Okay, and usually when they say that, they usually say, they point to a certain area, but there are probably, for a majority of us, there are probably a few areas that we really don't talk about because obviously we're uncomfortable with those things, right? So one of the concerns with the state over time and through the research of all these students being abused by pedophiles, by family members, by anybody you could think of who really shouldn't be on this planet, okay? We realize that sexual assault prevention cannot be 100% or near 100% if we aren't sure that students are able to identify specific areas and talk about certain terminology. Whether you agree with that or not, that's your opinion as a parent, but if you really think about it, there are probably some areas, for example, right, on your child that maybe you haven't really talked about. You know, somebody can't touch you here, somebody can't touch you up here. But, you know, we kind of just, you know, think about certain private areas. But unless, you know, you really scrub that data and you really look into all these things that how these students, children, can be exploited, you know, it's really pretty horrific, actually. If you really want to kind of Google some really interesting stuff, and interesting might not be a great term, but every city within a 20-mile radius where there's a Super Bowl, for example, right? So MetLife Stadium some years back had a Super Bowl. If you really are interested in child exploitation and how to avoid it, there is mandatory training for school administrators within a 20-mile radius wherever there's a Super Bowl. Are you aware of that? It's federally mandated. Okay, I see people shaking their heads, so some people may have done their due diligence. But did you know this? In a 20-mile radius, if that school district didn't also present some of these exploitation things to those students, it really means nothing, right? It's called putting the theory into practice. We can sit here and talk about it all we want. If it doesn't happen, if you don't do it at home, if you don't talk about it, it means nothing. I could go to a meeting, learn all this stuff about children being exploited during the Super Bowl, and then say, oh, this is great, I'm gonna drive home now and not tell any of my teachers. And it means nothing, right? But there's a lot of stuff out there that we're not aware of, okay? And the only way to really make our kids safe, whether you believe it's going to happen to your child or not, is to really make sure that it's available to students in a certain way. Now, I'm not saying that the way it's been presented to all of us over the past few months is the right way, but I wanted to give you the concept. So this was the why. This is the why people sat down and said, we really got to tweak this a little bit. All right? I was a middle school principal for 6 or 7 years, okay? Some of the things that I was involved with in middle school made my head spin. And I'm not talking about bullying. I'm not talking about the 2 girls that for 3 weeks I was late going home because they wanted to kill each other, and now they're roommates in college. I'm not talking about that. That's middle school stuff, right? People argue, well, we're friends today, not friends tomorrow. I'm talking about some of the sexual things that happened, some of the things that happened in bathrooms, some of the things that happened when you all as parents were at work and your 6th grade daughter or son brought someone to the house and, oh, nothing's going to happen. Those things do occur, right? Now, I know I'm looking out here, it's not going to happen to any of you. However, unfortunately, we need to make sure that we're aware of these things, and that's why the why and some of that stuff is in there, okay? So just keep that in mind as we're going through this, because I can't apologize for the state, but I can try to make you realize where Belleville is going to head over the next few months, okay? So this is important to us. All right, George. Okay, so there's your clarification, the standards, where they are. Obviously, I think you've all probably looked at them 10 times already, Jeff. All right, again, pretty small, but I think clipped out. There's a few different areas that the standards talk about, right? And the first one is personal growth and development. And here's an important thing too. I was talking to a superintendent this morning on the way in, because everybody seems to know that I'm having this forum tonight. He asked me a bunch of questions, and this was the part that I stressed to him. So there's 4 different buckets. Obviously, we're only dealing with the first 2 tonight, okay? And the state came up with, these standards as to what they think students should, be elevated to in an academic prowess of, this topic as, 2nd grade or 5th grade. The main thing that I want all of you to also take a deep breath on, right, is by the end of 2nd grade, okay? By the end of grade 5. So I think sometimes as parents, right, when we see this stuff and we see the word anal sex, right? Right? Oh my God. We think that our kindergarten child or our 1st grade child is going to go into school the next day and teachers are going to have it like written on the board and we're going to go over it, okay? So I think it's also important to take a breath and understand that this right now is a process. It's a process of how you get there, okay? And I don't think, I'm absolutely not disparaging anybody or making fun of you. I just think it's very common as a parent, myself included, like even when your kid comes home, right, and says, I can't believe the teacher did anything, automatically you're like, you're getting all charged up, right? You're upset. It's your child. It's the most important thing in the world to you. The same thing with this. They didn't tell us, they just put it in there. That's why we're here tonight, right? We're understanding it. So it's a process. So just know right now, if you have a kindergartner in school, it's very rare that what you think is going to happen so that you're going to have sleepless nights at home is probably most likely not going to occur. And that's where that communication has to come in, all right? So I want you to know it's a process, all right? The one that everybody is really nervous about, like I'm keeping it locked up because, when it gets there, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, is an 8th grade topic. But we're going to talk about it a little bit tonight because I think that's why most of you are probably here. But that's an 8th grade topic. So if you have children K to 5, you're not really dealing with it yet, but it's coming, okay? So personal growth and development basically talks about some of the processes of living a life, right? Developing, different things that happen to us, right? All right, Jeff, next. Okay, and again, this is just a few things here. Now, just so you know, when you're looking at some of the expectations, the state in New Jersey loves to throw a whole bunch of numbers in there to drive all the teachers crazy, right? So 2.12 PGD, like what is that, right? The main thing is that you're looking at that 3rd number, which is a 2, right? So that's by 2nd grade, basically. Okay? Basically, we're talking about how to keep the bodies healthy, washing your hands, brushing your teeth, the normal things that, guess what? We've been doing forever in school system. Forever. Okay? Now, one of the things that might be a little different for you, that maybe you're comfortable with, and that's fine, but I think you need to be aware of it, was the reason why I just gave you the why, right? To be able to identify certain parts, be able to identify certain parts, okay, of the body, etc., because some students, even though you're not ready at home, okay, to maybe talk about certain areas, some other kids are, okay? They are. And believe it or not, I know you think that your son or daughter comes home and tells you everything. Sometimes it's not true. It's especially not true if you're at home making sure that everybody knows that you're not ready to talk about this, okay? It happens. I've been around kids now for a very long time, and they don't tell us everything, all right? The whole idea here is to try to make them more comfortable to do that. But again, this isn't going to be your child coming in September 1st, and we're going to have a naked person up on the board, you know, and start going over the parts. It's not happening that way. Okay, but again, at least there's now an awareness of all of you to it, because this has been in here for a while. All right, next one. Same thing here, some changes during puberty, which is basically specific to 5th grade. If you go to the third number again, 215, right? So now we're in 5th grade. By 5th grade, with all due respect to you parents in here, I'm a parent myself, by 5th grade, if you haven't started to have a conversation with your children about puberty, you really need to do that, okay? Because they are definitely hearing it here, definitely. If you think a 5th grade boy doesn't know what a period is, then you really need to have a conversation and sit down and talk to a parent of a 5th grade girl. Because once that happens in 5th grade, right, and the girl comes in, everybody kind of understands what's happening. All right, we make sure that our nurses and our team here, you know, we have ways of showing videos. You guys, when you get there, you'll have a letter that goes home or a correspondence, okay? But what I'm saying to you is this: we have them here a certain amount of time. You have them outside of this: social media, TV, you know, different channels that they're watching, YouTube. I know you're checking on all that. I know you are. But guess what? They find a way to get in there, right? Okay? So again, some of this stuff's important, all right? And we have the healthcare professionals here that do it in an educated way. I will also say this, having 4 children, my oldest college, a few in high school, and one little guy going into middle school. If you have multiple children in your house, right? The young ones tend to hear it or learn from the old ones, right? I teach all our administrators that when I'm teaching in college. When a 2nd grader gets sent to the office because he used the F word, right? He must have heard it from somebody, right? He didn't learn that on his own. He didn't go into a book and learn. Somebody from home said the F word, all right? So again, trust me, if you have multiple siblings at home, multiple children at home, there may be stuff that they're saying that you're not aware of. Have the conversation. That's why it's important for us to at least have the ability to control it a little bit here when it does come up. All right, next. Pregnancy and parenting. Now, not so much maybe a concern for 2nd and 5th grade, you would say. That's not true. You want to know why? Because when a 2nd grader comes in and mommy's pregnant, right? And everybody at home tells a 2nd grader they came from the stork, right? But all the boys and girls in 2nd grade that know the real answer because of their siblings at home start making fun of that person. Now I'm dealing with a bullying case. That's what I'm dealing with now, okay? So again, even though you might say, oh, we don't have to talk about the real parts of pregnancy, all right? I'm not saying you have to sit down and talk about, you know, everything that occurs, right? But start thinking about some of these things a little bit. That's what we have to think about here. Now again, I think as parents, as humans, right, when these topics come up, they're uncomfortable topics, right? You think we're gonna come in here and have like a video on how someone has a baby. It's not happening, okay? However, there's a medical or an anatomical process that occurs, not a stork that, you know, flies in and drops a baby off, right? Think about some of those things. And of course, there's nobody in here, obviously, but maybe you have friends that do that, or you're not ready to tell them yet. Same thing, okay, forget about 2nd grade. We can argue about that all we want. 5th grade, though, I don't know, 5th grade, they probably should know how a baby's made, right? Or born, or something like that. But believe it or not, again, don't worry about anybody else but yourself. You know, if you're handling your own family, that's it. That's how it should be. But if you think a 5th grade individual, especially a female who may be getting her period in 5th grade, shouldn't know how a baby's made, I don't know. That's a little dangerous. Okay, just being completely honest with you. all right? That's why it's in here. That's why it's in here. And guess what? That's always been in here. Maybe it's tweaked a little bit now, but we've always talked about that, especially at the 5th grade level, okay? Next one. All right, so what we do is we define reproduction in 2nd grade. We talk about ways in which parents may care for their offspring. And we talk about animals and fish. And maybe a little bit, you know, I don't know, maybe there's some other topics in there that we use to talk about the reproductive process. You know, maybe not the intimate part of it. That's you at home, right? You should be discussing the importance of intimacy and caring for one another and not being abused. And that's you at home, that's not us, right? But there's that reproduction piece that is important. Then in 5th grade, right, there is a little bit more discussion between that relationship, all right? And I can promise you that really doesn't happen until 5th grade, right? And that's when it definitely needs to happen. And that's been happening since, I remember when I was in school, all the girls went to one room, all the boys went to another room, right? You guys probably remember that too. And then we talk about different pregnancy types as well. IVF, artificial insemination, different things, scientific things that are happening. Okay, Jeff, next one. Okay, sorry, a little small here, a lot of stuff. Social and sexual health, all right? Interacting with others efficiently, knowing how to discuss some of these things, all right? Another one of the topics that is embedded in this curriculum. Next one. Okay, so here's like 2nd grade stuff. How do you make your own choices to express yourself? Different ways people express themselves. Okay, we're not talking about sexual things. We're talking about, you know, maybe giving somebody a flower versus, you know, a white rose versus a red rose. The different things that can attract different types of senses of different relationships. What are healthy ways that friends can express feelings for one another? Right? Friends don't need to kiss each other all the time, right? But we handshake. Well, COVID kind of changed a lot of this, but let's pretend COVID never existed. You know, we're shaking hands, writing letters, appropriate letters, you know, saying things about people in a nice way, right? Or don't say anything at all, okay? Not pointing out a person's disability, or if they're a certain size, or something like that, different things like that. Okay, next one. And then we have different stuff between in 5th grade. There's stuff in there about gender identity, orientation, different things that I'm sure is going to spark some interest tonight too. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And also how common values are shared among families, because my family, right? There's 6 of us. My family values things differently than your family does, and that's 100% okay. It's 100% okay. What's not okay is when you, as an individual family, think that no one else has a right to feel that way either. It's not right. You can feel any way you want, just don't talk to me about it. That's your right. That's your right as an individual, as an American, whatever you want to say. But to force someone else a different way, that's not the right thing to do. Right? So we talk about some of that stuff. However, we're very careful here, because why? Because 99% of the time, those conversations get twisted and turned when we communicate. Remember the 2nd slide? When we communicate, they get turned into what? A political discussion, right? Usually a political discussion, or an ideology idea, all right? I'm with you 100% on that. If you don't like certain types of people, if you don't want to do that, you in your home, you can feel all the way you want, that's fine. You spread that any way you like, right? But don't spread it onto anyone else, right? It's not right. Either way, it's not right. So that's some of the stuff that we talk about. And we're very careful, and our teachers here do a fantastic job. Been here 7 years and never had any issues. Maybe once or twice we had to talk to some parents, we talked it out, we communicated, and we figured it out, right? Not systematic, figured it out. Individual stuff, communicated, that's how we learn it. Next one. Personal safety, here's the why. This should be the only slide, I really think. This is what the commissioner should have came down here, landed in the parking lot, and said, here, this is why we're doing it, guys. Right? Personal safety, hygiene, and other stuff too. All right? But how about this? Certain situations are unhealthy. There are certain behaviors that are unhealthy. You should absolutely be having those conversations at home. And again, I know you are. I'm absolutely not telling you about a parent, trust me. I'm definitely not doing that. right? However, we need to reiterate that for you. You know why? Because some of us here see your children more than you do. That's sad, believe it or not, but that's society. Same thing with me. We'll do the same thing, right? Certain weeks, think about it. You know, if you're working late, if you, I don't know, you have something going on, your kid has practice, right? We're here 7, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. If your child has one teacher, that's a lot. It's a lot of contact time. We need to make sure that we reiterate the ideology that you're sharing. That's not something that's really, you know, something that could be debated, right? I don't think anybody in here will stay after this and debate me on, I think my daughter or son should have an unhealthy lifestyle. I don't think we're going to debate that. I hope not, right? I mean, that's just the truth, right? We always talk about drugs, alcohol, STDs, right? Do you know, as a middle school teacher, how many of my students in 2 different schools had STDs? It was unimaginable. I couldn't even believe it. To the fact where the nurses were like, we gotta have some kind of, like, you know, meeting on this and talk about some kind of forum for this. I'm like, we're not having an STD forum. Are you kidding me? I can't believe we're doing this. But it's a reality. It's a reality. Right? Because what do we know about that? All it takes is one popular kid, right, who's exploring a little bit, and then we have a bunch of popular kids, and I use the word popular loosely, I think you know what I'm talking about, right? That they're all exploring a little bit, and then we have a big problem here. It happens, so we have to all be on the same page. And then the personal safety absolutely comes down to people out there that are looking at your kid a different way, right? And you're all saying to yourself, never gonna let it happen. I'll kill that person, right? You're saying that. You're definitely saying that, because I'm saying that as I'm sitting here, right? But think about it, right? My little guy the other day, I'm sitting there, he's like, hey Dad, I'm gonna go down the courts with my friend, and we're gonna go, and we're gonna play basketball. I'm like, all right, so I have a 360 app. You guys have a 360 app, right? If they have a phone, you know, watching where they're going, right? You all know what I'm talking about. It's a free app, right? It's great. I'm watching, he's playing basketball, I'm watching TV. I'm a little nervous, you know, he's about a mile away, but you know, he's growing up. Text my wife, Mom, we're gonna go next door for some ice cream. He's like, okay, just be careful, you know. All of a sudden, I'm watching, he's going, now I'm like, whoa, no, she didn't tell me, she doesn't have to. Not her, she doesn't tell me anything. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? So, she knows he's going, but I'm looking at the app, I'm like, whoa. Where's he going? Where's he going? Is he in a car? Where's he going? I don't know what's happening. I get up, I'm flipping out. I'm like, whoa, where's Marco going? What's going on here? No, he's going for some ice cream. You gotta tell me that. You gotta tell me. You have to tell me. What do you mean I have to tell you, right? You know, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, for a split second. You ever lose your kid in a store? For a split second, I'm saying to myself, wow, I can't believe it could have just possibly happened. Right? Wait till your kids start driving. Right? Your kids start driving, forget it. Your life's over. It's over. Okay? Tell me. I'm being honest. You'll know it if you don't know it already. All right? That's what this is about. Personal safety. That's the why. That's the why. The why we've been talking about. The only thing that should be sparking interest, besides the other things you're going to talk about tonight, but why these are changing right now. Because we're not doing a good job of that. As schools, parents are doing a great job. We're not doing a good job reiterating the great job you're doing. We're not. All right? We got to talk about some of these things. Go ahead. All right. So, the moment you've all been waiting for, my fantastic team here has pointed out what we think are some of the things you're really here for tonight. Right? I gave you the little intro, so we make it, you know, we're talking about the whole thing. So we're going to talk about some of these things. Then I'm going to keep my mouth shut and hear what you all have to say. We'll stay here as late as we have to. Everybody has a chance to say what they want to say. Again, we go back to that immediate slide that said respect. We just want to make sure we respect one another. We want to make sure this isn't a debate. This is not time to debate. And I'll go over those ground rules again. But let's go right into these things. Here we go. Go ahead, Jeff. Give me the first one. By the end of 2nd grade, there's a bunch of stuff happening, but here's that highlighted part that's probably on your mind. Discuss the range of ways people express their gender and how gender role stereotypes may limit behavior. Okay? So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about certain people who want to like same sex, like other sex, I don't know, however they identify. All right? So Basically, the rationale for us talking about that is not to change the ideology of your family or how somebody is or what your beliefs are. The reason why it's in there is because it's a very simple concept, the acceptance of others. That's what it is. Now, I don't really know what to say to parents that talk to me about this, but I don't know how you really have a choice, okay? If somebody wants to dye their hair a certain way, if somebody wants to wear a certain shirt, if somebody wants to, I don't know, play a certain song, they're allowed to do all of that. The whole idea is to just accept that that's what they want to do. Now, if you don't like it, maybe you don't have to prescribe to it. You don't have to be friends with those individuals. And if you, as a parent, want to say to your son or daughter, don't be friends with that person, that's your ideology. That's fine. Doesn't give the right to your son not to bully somebody or your daughter to say something because someone's different. That's called acceptance. Isn't that what we're talking about? Isn't that what we talk about in Belleville? Diversity, culture, equity, and access, how great we are here with all that stuff? The same thing. So this to me, I didn't think this was going to be a problem here. Because we've been doing it since I've been here and before. It's acceptance. All right, we're going to talk about on another slide about family and how the familial unit has changed, right? And I know some parents probably don't agree with that because you have different ideologies, different politics and stuff, but okay, that's great. But again, why can't we just accept other people for what they are? Nobody's going to make people no teacher is going to make a kid get up and say, everybody has to act this way now. We've never done that, we never will, all right? I think the important thing is, though, is that we have to finally memorialize the fact that it's okay to accept these things. It's okay, all right? For years and years and years, we weren't, as educators, allowed to talk about certain things because they were not acceptable. They just weren't, all right? And now things are acceptable, all right? Same thing with different races. Different colors, creeds, religion. I mean, just acceptance. I may not believe a different religion from someone else, right? I mean, I might not even prescribe to that ideology at all, but I'm accepting of how you want to, raise your children or raise your family, or, if you want to fast, or if you want to, I don't know, take a day off, or whatever it is. That's just acceptance. That's all that is. Okay? So acceptance of others. All right, next one. By the end of grade 5, explain common human sexual development and the role of hormones, okay? And then, in parentheses, example, romantic and sexual feelings, masturbation, etc. Now, I will just say this. I'm not going to get on my horse because everybody here has heard this a million times from me already. This will absolutely not be in Belleville's curriculum, 100%, okay? This absolutely is the biggest mistake probably in the New Jersey Department of Education history, that somebody wrote that and put that in there, okay? Because the suggestions that are in there are just suggestions. They do not have to be followed. Now, is that something at some point, and again, I know there's kids in here, but I'm a straight shooter, is that something at some point that you as a parent have to recognize is definitely going to happen to your child? Okay? That's on you, okay? That's a conversation you have to have. So get ready for that, because that happens sooner than later too, right? That's like a switch turns on and off, you're not gonna know what's happening, okay? The bigger issue with some of this stuff that's important for me to make sure we communicate this, forget that word, because it's not happening here in Belleville, okay? Well, not that, you know what I mean, it's not going to be taught here in Belleville, okay? The biggest thing here for me is individual students becoming adults or teenagers, understanding what's happening to them and how to act appropriately when these changes are made. Now again, it's not easy having a conversation like this because there are some things sexually that occur, right, when we're teenagers, and we've all been teenagers and we understand that. But as a young male, I can tell you that certain things happen that you don't know what's happening and when it's happening, right? And sometimes it happens in class, right? So when that happens, and if it happens in 5th grade, which can happen, believe it or not, okay? We have to make sure that instead of your son, for example, just give an example, instead of your son getting up and running out of the room crying and upset and totally scarred for life, there is a way of talking about some of the reactions that will happen because of your hormones. Same thing with females, right? We do this really well with females because we talk about their menstrual cycle, right? We talk about that, and we know why that's so important, right? You know, as soon as that menstrual cycle comes, right, we can carry a baby, right? So again, it's important to understand that is probably, if you guys brought stuff tonight, I'm sure some of you highlighted that one, right? Biggest mistake in DOE history, all right? Absolutely not going to happen here. I'm also telling you and promising you as a team when we write this, even romantic feelings are going to be really careful with that, okay? There's a way to antiseptically talk about romantic feelings because you can feel a different way for your friend than you can for somebody you feel romantically about, okay? But we're not going to talk about, you know, we should take somebody out to dinner and all that other stuff. That's you as a family, right? Teach your kids how to date, teach your kids all that great stuff, okay? We're not going to talk about that, but we are going to try to mention some of that. So that one is the red flag, right? They go, shh, right? That kind of thing, okay? Every one of my kids that have been through the grade 5 talk have all been nervous about the talk. One of my daughters refused to go to school that day because the school made such a big deal about the talk. Make sure your parents get this note. Make sure they talk about it. It was like she was so stressed out she didn't go to school. It was the worst thing ever, right? So we're making sure it doesn't happen here. We're making sure it doesn't happen here. And again, we are all cognizant of the lightning rod that is on this curriculum. In my 25 years of writing curriculum now, I've never seen a curriculum so like, you know, everybody knows as a curriculum expert now, right, all of a sudden. For 25 years, so it's good that we're talking about it. So again, here we're talking about puberty, pubescence. There are grade 5 different discussions that we have to have with 5th graders. And the examples in everything you read from the DOE are not mandated. We are not going to use those. Okay, again, something at home. All right, Jeff, go ahead. Okay. Didn't highlight anything here because it's just kind of an overview, but talks about sexual orientation, gender identity. I know there's a lot of discussion about that. A lot of people, you know, don't believe in that, especially if it's a religious thing, et cetera, et cetera. But again, that's your ideology at home. You really can't tell somebody that what they are or what they're not. Just like I can't sit here and say, you're not this race, you're not this color. It doesn't make any sense. It's just about acceptance. So, if anything, we would like you all to read at home that accept others for who or what they are, for what size they are, for, I don't know, how they look, right? If someone has bigger ears than others, someone has bigger nose than others, right? Accept them for what they are, what they feel, and move on from it. Doesn't mean that you have to revere it. Doesn't mean that you have to, you know, be very excited about it. Just accept it. And that's what this is about, right? Acceptance of others. And the familial makeup. My favorite thing with this is when I talk about a family makeup, the first thing everybody's starting to talk about now is, you know, 2 men, someone who has 2 dads, right? Or someone who has 2 moms, okay? Again, yeah, that happens. We know that, right? So when your child goes over to that house, you probably want to prepare them for that, right? Just because it's an acceptance thing, right? Again, if you don't want to do that, that's a parent thing, but that's not how we deal with it here, okay? However, I will tell you this. How about a familial makeup of 2 grandparents, right? Some kids have 2 grandparents, right? And a kid walks in, because you didn't talk about it, or maybe you guys did, and they say, wow, why are your parents so old? Happens all the time, right? It's another familial makeup. How about this? Single parent home. When you have a child who's brought up and had a very tight family unit, male, female, right? And brought up that this is how it works. Dad goes to work, mom takes me to soccer, and all of a sudden they go to a house or an apartment and it's one mom working 2 jobs. Where's your dad? Right? Please tell me if you've heard some of that. Maybe not at home, but you've heard those stories, right? That's what we need to talk about. It's not just about what you're thinking, it's about a bunch of different things. So when you're talking to your kids, remember, the scope is large. It's a large scope. There's a lot of different things happening in the world today. And guess what? Acceptance. That's all it is. You may not like it, but you have to accept it, right? Just like your own children, you know, they're all different. You have 5 kids, 10 kids, 2 kids. They're all 1 kid, right? Well, maybe only the one you have. They're all different. You have to accept their differences. They're not all going to get A's. They're not all going to study. They're not all going to be doctors, right? It's acceptance. You got to accept people. All right, next one. All right, I want to put an emphasis on the grade. This is not anybody in here maybe, but this is 8th grade. But actually, Shanklin was the one who said to me, if you don't bring this one up, people might kill you. So I know you've all seen this one, and you're all going to have an 8th grader one day, maybe. So let's talk about it, okay? Define vaginal, oral, and anal sex. As soon as the word anal, and when you get to high school, they use the term analingus, okay? And if you don't know what that is, you should Google it. I'm not going to go over it, but that's used in high school. And guess what? Guess what? These things are happening. And I can tell you specifically as a middle school principal, I'm not making this up, all of these things happen in 8th grade. All of these things happen before 8th grade. Okay? And all of the parents that I had a conversation with about all of these things that happened before 8th grade all told me I was a liar. All told me I was a liar. Okay? So, again, I know you're all having those conversations at home. We're not going to do it here, okay? But the reality is this. Those things are happening. Even the anal part that nobody can imagine, that happens. Okay? And again, I don't want to get into the reasons why that this is occurring, but it is occurring. And the sad part is that, and it's coming down to the bottom here, is that certain individuals of this age and younger are having these things occur and they don't recognize them as being sexually assaulted. I know some of you are out there right now looking at me like I have rocks in my head and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I am telling you that this is the truth. They don't understand it, okay? They don't get it, right? So this little caveat on the bottom, which is a fantastic quote from, I don't know, is it from the state, exactly from the state, which, all right, we gotta give them credit for something, right? It is important to provide students language for and understanding of specific act, empowering them to stay safe, evaluate risks, make informed decisions, and communicate health issues or injuries if necessary. If necessary. Further, youth who are unable to appropriately name sexual acts may not be able to accurately report instances of sexual harm or abuse if it occurs. I've seen research as well that talks about students not thinking an uncle or someone did something to them wrong because certain areas were never talked about as being wrong. And that individual was like, well, it's not wrong if I do it there or if you do this to me. Okay? It's true. Right now, I also don't think that's my job, but I will tell you that it's very difficult at home to talk about all the things possible, all right? But I think if you look at the key rationale again, you don't have to agree with me, I'm just telling you what the rationale is. Acceptance of others, keeping students safe from pressure, dating violence, and assault. That's the key rationale as to why all of these things are occurring, okay? You, maybe, like some other people in the state of New Jersey, think that because we say the term anal sex, that it's going to create all of these 8th grade individuals to now have anal sex, okay? Well, I will tell you this. If we don't say it here, which we may not, right? It's in the regs, but we may not. If we don't say it here, you better say it at home. And if you don't think that's appropriate, you better say it. You better say, this isn't something that's appropriate. Maybe you do think it's appropriate. I don't know. Again, your house, your ideology. I don't know what it is. But what I'm saying is, if you think this isn't happening, you are 1,000% wrong. I'm telling you. It may never happen to your child, but it is definitely happening. Okay? So again, the identification of it shouldn't be the issue for you. I think the issue people are having is that we think that because we say something, this is going to entice people. I think because we say the word, I don't know, homosexual, that everybody now is going to be a homosexual. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Okay, same thing here. I say anal sex, everybody's gonna have anal sex. It's another ridiculous thing. Okay? Now, again, if your ideology at home is, we don't even want to talk about that at all, never tell the person, that's your choice. When we get to the end, you'll get to an opt-out, and we put all this together, right? But this is the reason why it's in there, because I am telling you that your child at some point in his or her life is going to be faced with this term. Absolutely 100% is going to be faced with this term. So if we're not going to do it, totally fine with us. The teachers would love that, trust me. Please make sure you do it. And I know you're all going to do it, I get it, but please make sure. It's very important, only because of those last few words in bold in the rationale. Dating, violence, and assault. Okay? I see about 100 people now, maybe 75 people in here, right? By statistics, there was at least 1 or 2 individuals either dating assaulted or sexually assaulted in this room. Okay? Don't want to know who it is, or what it is, or know somebody at least who was. It's a real thing. It absolutely is a real thing in high school. It's a high school principal for many years. Big issue in the high school. Dating violence. Huge issue. You know, and as a father, you say, oh, I'll go after that guy. Too late. Too late at that point. Too late. Okay? So, and where do you think all that stuff is learned? Just like when I sit up here, we talk about math scores and English scores. We have to learn at the younger grades, right? You can't just turn it on junior year. It doesn't happen. You have to have that foundation. Like when you build a house, right? Build a foundation, you build up. So it's the same thing here. Okay? Again, nobody is telling you your ideology is wrong or what you want to do. That's going to be your decision. I'm just telling you why it's here, the why, the rationale, and how we're going to move forward from this, even though we haven't written a thing yet. Okay? All right, your turn's coming soon, don't worry. All right, here's the last thing. We put the whole thing here from our friends at Midland Park. Right? I think we got this, right? We were borrowing from people. I think this is a big thing everybody's doing. Basically, opting out, what does it look like? So the whole idea is when our incredible curriculum team writes this, and then we bring it to the board committee, we put in here, we're going to make sure that the teacher's lessons with some of these very, very challenging topics at certain grade levels will be basketed in certain lessons, so that we'll be able to make you aware when that will be, and then you will opt out. Okay? You are not permitted to opt out of the entire curriculum. That's not how it goes. Okay? Also, like I said to you, there has to be some policing at home. There also has to be that communication, right? If one of our teachers said something and you don't like it, we need to know immediately. Immediately. And you need to tell your child, because I know all your children are going to be talking about this, because I know it's a heightened thing at home too, right? So we need to talk about it immediately and see what it is, and we get an answer for you. Again, those of you who've had conversations with me before in the past, we hold everybody accountable. People make mistakes. Just like all of you in your job make mistakes, sometimes we make mistakes too. But this is something that we are very attuned to, because we know that we have to make sure that we have the appropriate personnel in there, and that they have the right lesson planning behind them, him or her, so that they can make the right decisions when they're teaching these things to your child. So again, one of the biggest lines, this last one, there's no opt-out of instruction with regard to LGBTQ for other subjects. Okay, so if you're here to talk about the curriculum and how we now influence certain other areas, like for example, history, to talk about people in those categories and historic moment in time, you can't opt out of that. That's part of the culture of America. Okay, that's history. However, if you want to opt out of maybe a discussion about families at home, and we're going to talk about that, you can opt out of that in the family and life curriculum or the phys ed health curriculum. The family and life opt-out has been here in Belleville since I've been here, okay? It's been more of the older ages, obviously, because we have specific buckets of instruction that talk about these things. But now, obviously, across the state, we're going to make sure that when we do these units, that they are condensed in such a way so that you can kind of pick and choose, all right? And that's why we chose, as a team, to wait until this time to do this. I think we had a conversation early on when all these other towns are bringing it up, like in March or maybe January and February, and all the, it got into the papers and everybody's writing the governor. And what I said was that there is no way anybody's implementing this before the end of the year. There's no way. Because of just some of the things I highlighted, some of the mistakes that were made. And they were mistakes, don't get me wrong. But now, for Belleville, we need to back up a little bit, take a breath, right? Take a breath, work together on it. Here's the why. We know you're going to communicate. We know now you're going to have your say tonight in what you think, is happening or whatever. And we're going to take it from there. All right? And then we will absolutely put this out to you so you're aware of what the new curriculums are in August. Okay? Or even before that if we can. Okay? All right, so it's your turn now to chime in if you like. Okay? Mr. Parapato is going to come around with a microphone, but just a few I'm sorry. Mr. Luna is going to go around with a microphone. Everybody's going to have a chance to talk. A few ground rules, okay? I may not have the answers for you tonight if you have a question, but we'll get you the answers, okay? So just before you leave, or maybe if we can, Ms. Shanklin and Mr. Coben up here will get your, thank you, email addresses, okay? This is absolutely 100% not going to be a debate. Not going to be a debate. It's a comment, it's a forum. I'm not going to debate you. My ideology is not even close to what you probably think it is, okay? Or how my family unit is, and you shouldn't even care about that, because it means nothing about the curriculum that I'm going to write for your child, okay? Again, you're going to have the options of, opting out at some of those things, and again, this is where we're at. So, thank you for listening, and now I'm looking forward to listening to you. So, if you could just say your name, just so I have, go ahead.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm Matt Salvarini. My son's going into the 5th grade in school 4. The last slide that you showed, the last sentence, I was a little confused by it slightly.
Okay.
You're saying that, there you go, however, parents and guardians may not opt out of the instruction with regard to that community change, blah, 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 blah. If it's referenced in another subject, in other words, you said social studies, so if they talk about the times there was a movement, and I'm just making it up in New York City, they can't opt out of that, but they can opt out of the whole other curriculum. But if it's mentioned in math, and I'm just making stuff up, so forgive me, they can't obviously opt out of that. That's part of that history.
Right, I'll give you a great example. The Twinkie Defense, if you're a legal person, maybe you are, maybe not. Twinkie Defense was used for someone who basically committed a murder in a public building, and he killed a councilman in San Francisco. Councilman was Harvey Milk. Okay, for about 100 years, nobody knew that Harvey Milk was gay. Okay, again, acceptance, right? It's okay to say that now. It's okay to say it, and you can't opt out of learning about that part of the curriculum. So something like that. Again, it's not something where everybody kind of thinks, like even you talked about a movement. There's no really, not that I'm aware of, any curricular piece that talks about a movement of that type of nature. But if there was, I don't know, holiday or something like that, yeah, that's something that there's no opt-out for that. No, that's history.
As long as it's part of another subject.
Correct.
Focus just on that.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yes. What we're talking about here is when we sit down with your child and we talk about different family units, and we say, 2 men can be married. You might not want that. You're able to opt out of that. Okay?
Focused on that, and I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, it should only be taught in that curriculum, which would be the health and physical curriculum.
But then we can opt out of that.
Correct. Now, this is a good point. We talk about communicate, we talk about holding people accountable. If your child comes home and says that somebody's teaching that in physics, that's when I need a phone call. Okay, and we just got to see what's happening, because we want to make sure that your right as a parent is the same as everyone else's right, but I can't do that without the communication. Doesn't mean you have to call up and start yelling at me because it happened, right? Because I'm in my office, but I absolutely will investigate it. So that's the communication. Even if you have a question, is this okay? Contact me. We've talked before, right? So you just contact me, that's all.
Thank you.
You got it. Anyone else? Just put your arm up and Mr. Lou will come by. Listen, if you don't feel comfortable now, I'll stay. There's a bunch of pizza. I haven't missed a meal, as you can tell. So there's a bunch of pizza outside. all right? I mean, we could stay all night and talk. You just may have to wait if you don't feel like doing anything publicly. Yes, that gentleman in the back.
Hi there. My name is Jason Medina. My son goes to school 10.
How are you, sir?
He's in the 2nd grade right now. I'm sure everybody is as concerned as I am. I'm here because, you know, we're very concerned about the curriculum. And I just feel that somehow I feel like a lot of this is kind of dished down our throats. With that being said, I'm just thinking, how can we, growing up in my time, the biggest thing was bullying. And I think that that's exactly where we need to focus because everybody is different in their own way. We don't have to centralize what we're focusing on, but if we focus on the bigger deal, on how to treat everybody equally, that would encompass everything. So that's my biggest thing. And also, you know, like back in my day, and still to this day, is drugs and stuff. So that's the biggest concern, is keeping our kids off of drugs. You know, being an advocate for anti-bullying and helping, you know, kids help other kids, not bullying other kids, and being, you know, and standing up for kids that are helpless. And I think that that's where we should kind of focus on, but and not generalize it to one focused area.
Great comment, thank you. I agree. So, agree with you 1,000%. I'll just put a little caveat on that, and it's not to stir up any controversy, and it's not saying I disagree with you at all. One of the issues that we are having in education is the bullying piece, right? And one of the areas that we have is that acceptance piece, okay? So for example, if the ideology at home is that the family doesn't accept a certain individual, right? So it kind of trickles down, right? And now we come in here, we have that issue. It's probably not happening in your house, sir, but I mean, it's happening. So the generalized comment is we want to just make sure we talk about acceptance as much as we can so we don't have those bullying issues. Most of our bullying issues here, when I was growing up, when you're a lot younger than me, but when you were growing up, like, you know, they would be taken care of, we didn't have bullying, right? I mean, it's taken care of a different way, which is unfortunate, but now it's very sensitized. So it becomes very difficult when I sit down with a parent and I say something like, listen, your son can't call this person this. And they're like, why not? I mean, that actually happens, right? There's principals around you, they'll tell you it happens. And it's very difficult. And all we want to say to those parents is, listen, you may not agree with it, but it's an acceptance thing and you have to do that for each other. But I agree with what you're saying. Generalize, it should be more, drugs obviously are an issue still everywhere. The bullying is big, and obviously the violence, you know, we're doing the best we can there. So I appreciate the comment. I will say that I also feel, I don't know, I probably shouldn't say this because you're probably like, what? You know, this is, writing a curriculum like this, to me, is taking up a lot of time that I think if my team just wrote this, we probably could have given it to everybody in the state, because I know we're going to write it the right way, because we honestly feel that the responsibility should be on all of you, your parents, okay? Good parents, right? So we're going to write this in a way, and we're going to present it to you, and hopefully you understand that those big bucket concepts of acceptance and whatnot is really all we need to put in here, because again, regardless of what you feel at home, everyone has a right to feel a certain way, right? But again, thank you for the comment. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, yeah, he's coming up.
Okay, so Michelle Clavijo, I have 4 children, soon to be 4 children in the Belleville schools. You already know me well. So I have a lot, but I want to be fair to everybody else. And a lot of things you've already answered, like the masturbation thing was a huge deal for me. I don't think that belongs in schools at all. I understand that we're trying to teach these 2nd graders about body parts and stuff like that. I'm just trying to make sure that it stays away from intercourse and sex. And I'll tell you why. I have 2nd graders, I have 2. They're both 7 years old. There is sex in everything. okay? I'm talking about the music, the TV, everything. I'm trying so hard to keep my kids innocent. That doesn't mean I don't talk to them about their body parts, and it doesn't mean that we don't have those conversations. It just means that I don't want their thought to be sex all the time. And I feel like school at 2nd grade, it shouldn't be about that. And the more we make it about that, the more it is just going to be everywhere. School should be a place to learn accurate, scientific anatomy, and that is it, especially at that age. So that was my first issue. Okay, so 5th graders, we're talking about 10-year-olds, okay? My kids are gonna be 10 years old. The masturbation thing was a huge deal for me, and I hope to God that you guys keep that out, because
100% true.
I wanna know what teacher's comfortable talking about that stuff with 10-year-olds. Like, right, like it's just,
I have to be honest, I don't even if we didn't take it out, or I don't think anybody would wanna do it anyway.
Right, exactly, so there's that. And like the gentleman before said about, focusing so much on sexual orientation and gender identity, we should be focusing on kindness, period. Not kindness because of who they love or kindness because of their sexual orientation. We need to focus on kindness because they are humans,
right.
Period. And then for the fact that they have to differentiate between sexual orientation and gender identity. The definition alone for sexual orientation, it's found on page 65 of that whole ridiculously long thing. It has the word sex in it 6 times, just in the definition. Why are we desensitizing our 10-year-old children like this? 10-year-olds shouldn't have to use the word sex more than 6 times in a week. Like, for them to have to use it that many times in a definition, it is just kind of numbing them to the importance of sex, okay? And to talk to children about gender identity and these books that are on Epic about, Jack Not Jackie, that my 2nd grader can read, that is currently on there. No one has the right to talk to my kid about how they feel. And I'm not saying that how they feel is wrong. I have 4 children. My odds are high that one of them may not feel the sex that they are, right? The more children you have, the odds are one of them is probably not gonna feel the way they are. But that's my conversation to have with my child or the pediatrician and nobody else. I'm almost done. Okay, and then one thing that wasn't mentioned, which I just want to, I know this is a topic that is hot right now. On page 33, by the end of 8th grade, abortion is listed as a pregnancy option, okay? That's a hot topic, and I feel like it's it can easily be political, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's a very passionate subject, and anyone who is passionate about it, including teachers, is not gonna be able to instruct children and remain neutral. It's almost impossible, right? You feel a certain way, and that is what it is. So if you're pro-choice, you don't want a teacher who is pro-life teaching your kids that it is wrong to kill babies or however it's put. Parents that are pro-life don't want their teacher that is pro-choice teaching their kids that it's bad to take away a woman's right. It should not be in school, period. That is just not something that should be brought up. It's gonna lead to struggles and conflict in the home if the teacher's telling them one thing and the home believes another thing. Like, that is just, it is really heavy stuff that doesn't belong for 8th graders. And then I'm gonna explain to you why I feel the way I do. The sex ed teacher in my high school was fired for demonstrating oral sex on a banana to our class. True story. This was in the late 90s. What I want you to take from this, you never really know what will take place in the classroom. You will never know. The more in-depth you get, the more you open the door to inappropriate conversations. The more we get our kids used to talking about sex and sexual preferences and masturbation in front of the entire classroom and an adult whom is not a parent or a guardian, the more we leave room for them to be comfortable talking about sex to strangers and online predators. I don't want my child to become so comfortable talking about sexual preference that their gut intuition no longer kicks in when a conversation becomes inappropriate in a chat or at a friend's house with an older siblings or at a family party. See, the why is telling you that we're trying to prevent this, but it is also desensitizing these very young minds from thinking that this is normal to just talk about with everybody, with their entire class and a teacher that they barely know. And the ending is opt out. What happens to our kid? So my kid's just gonna sit in the library or sit in the office because I don't want them to be a part of it? It should be opt-in. The parents who want their kids to be taught these things should say, I want my kids signed up for this. Our kids should not have to, they shouldn't have to miss valuable instruction or be punished, because that's how they're gonna feel when they're just sitting at a computer for the entire hour that their whole friends are learning about this interesting stuff.
Yeah,
And it's not fair to them.
Yeah, that's interesting. We can definitely get
And
to
that was
that.
my last, sorry.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. Excellent. Give a round of applause. Sure. That was great. I do have a few comments. So you brought up some really good points. I'm glad you did, because I didn't want to talk about any of this, but I think it's important that I at least comment on something. It's not, that's your voice, you agree with 100%. First, the opt-in is a good idea. I don't know if it's allowed, so we'll look into that. There's no reason to answer now, but we'll look into that. For certain topics, right? Okay. Let's first talk about the word sex, like you talked about 8 times. Obviously, the word sex, I think in those definitions, doesn't mean the act of sex. It meant sex, male, female. That curriculum was not made for your kids to read, it was made for you to read. So obviously we understand what that is. We're not talking, when they write sex from the DOE, they're not talking about having sex. They're talking about male, female. So again, just so we're all clear for that. But let's talk about something that's very interesting that you said about you have 4 children and the odds are possibly, okay, I don't know if there's any research on that, but you know, there's a chance. I get it. Yeah, if you have 50 kids. Right. Right. So, a parent, I'm not going to say you. I'll say me. I have a daughter who right now is bisexual, gay, you know, talking with different people about it. So, my wife and I, very accepting of it, always have been. That's where I am. Her friends where I live, not accepting of it. It's not. My family, accepting of it. My daughter, love her, no matter what. Just like you would, right? Okay. You drop your kid off at school, put him in my and local parentis. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to make sure that all the kids are accepting of him or her? Or do you want me to say, hey guys, your family's right, whatever. That, you hit it right on the head. I'm glad you said it. Because I don't want to bring up my personal stuff, but it's something I'm dealing with my wife, you know, and then she comes home and I'm like, honey, don't worry about it. We're here. You know, I'm in the worst area for this, trust me. The worst area. My wife and I grew up down here. She wanted to move out to a farm, and there's no acceptance where I am, nothing, okay? But I have 4 kids, so you're right, hit that statistic. But every day I worry about her getting beat up on the bus, whole bunch of stuff. Because I don't know if this stuff's gonna be talked about, I really don't know. So again, you have your opinion, and I appreciate it, but I think you hit it right on the head. What you're saying at home, you're saying that because you're not dealing with that part of it. The idea is that there's gotta be an acceptance piece as well when you drop your kids off for everybody else, because it may be one of your kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. It may be one of your kids, so that's it. But there's one more thing you said too, hold on, let me think. I can't remember. Oh, the abortion piece. There is not one girl in 8th grade who doesn't know what an abortion is. No way. I will argue, there is no way they don't know, okay? How many 8th grade parents talk about abortion? I don't know the numbers, but it's not 100%. Where are they learning it? They're learning it from somewhere. Would you rather your kids learn about abortion on the street? Or what?
They're learning it on TV, on the news.
Right. Shut the TV off then, Mr. Rodriguez. You can't do it. You can't do it. No, hold on a second. So what I'm trying to say is that if you really think that you're going to guard, you talked about the music too. Oh my God. I have a 6th grade son, 5th grade. The music he's listening to, I said, do you know what that is? Shut that off. That's nothing, Dad. What is it? What is it? You don't know what that is? They don't know. So what should I do? Should I sit down and say, this is what this term means? And it's bad. He's dancing to it. He's got the AirPod, right? You all know what I'm talking about. So that's all it is. Again, I am not saying that stuff should happen, but I think the acceptance piece is big for us when it does happen to somebody, so. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, you have the conch. What book? Where are the flies? That's right.
Hi, good evening. My name is Giselle Zalazar, and I'm here for my daughter, who's in 5th grade, in school number 5. One thing that I wanted to ask about is when it comes to the LGBT curriculum and learning. We didn't cover it. But my question is, like Michelle said, we should teach kids about acceptance, anti-bullying. My brother's gay, and my best friend is, and my kids, you gotta teach your kids to be non-homophobic. So, I mean, that's the age that we are in right now. So I don't think there's a parent here that wants to, that does not have that point of view. Now, my concern is, when it comes to the scientific facts, there's a lot of talk about how boys can be girls, girls can be boys. That is unscientific. We all know why. So that's the major concern that I have when it comes to science and chromosomes and how our genetic makeup is like from birth. So a lot of kids these days are confused. They're non-binary, and I just feel like it's, in a way, this is all happening because of social contagion and because kids are confused, and they just think that they can be anything. It's like your kid thinks they can be Superman or fly or be a bird. So I just want to know if we are teaching the kids facts. I'm all about teaching kids that families can be of 2 dads or 2 moms, and these kids, can live in normal, loving households. And so that's like basically my main concern when it comes to the LGBT subject. And a lot of kids are, especially high school children, want to be puberty blockers. There's a lot of parents that are concerned about that. And we feel that part of the reason why a lot of kids are going through that and kind of mutilating their bodies is because it is accepted in schools. It's being taught that you can be whatever and whoever you want to be, and it doesn't matter. So that's one area of concern that I have. And when it comes to the abortion, I want to go back to that. You said that every 8th grader knows what an abortion is, and that's totally okay. And that, I can agree with that. But do they know, like, what is the point of view from abortion? Like, they know what it is, but is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And this is why the schools cannot be teaching that, because you can't have a neutral point of view when it comes to abortion. You're either pro-life or you're either pro-choice. Exactly. So, an abortion, kids can know what an abortion is, but are teachers going to teach that you're killing a child? Or are teachers going to say that it's my choice, I can just kill my child? You know what I mean? So there's no way that you can teach about abortion without having either ideological point of view or a religious point of view or a political point of view.
Right. I don't think that there's an actual, and we'll look at this too, because I agree with you on that, but I don't think it talks about like what the ideology of an abortion is. I think it's more of that it's like a part of pregnancy. It can be, could be spontaneous
abortion. Is not part of pregnancy.
No, what I'm saying is it could be part of that whole the whole option of it. It's not saying that you should do this, but it's an option out there. So as a teacher, if I'm there and a girl says, can't you just get an abortion? What am I supposed to say? I'm not allowed to talk about that because your parents don't want me to talk about that, right? So, I know you're all here because you're informed parents. There's 5,000 students in this district, you get it? There's, minus I have a bunch of administrators here, thank you all for coming. Minus that, minus the other people, those parents aren't listening to this, okay? So, there are definitely people that will, say abortion's okay. There will definitely people that say it's not okay, whatever it is. I don't think any teacher really wants to get into that, and we do a very good job of stopping that. But I think to just ignore or avoid it is just not, I don't know if it's sensible to do that because it's so out there, And the other thing I will tell you this, you talked about, transgenders and all that other stuff. If don't raise your hand, but if your kids have ever watched the Kardashians, okay, they should have asked you, or they will ask you or a friend, what happened to, was it Kylie? What happened to Kylie's father, right? Well, of course they don't watch that. Right, they don't even know what that is. I mean, I don't know who doesn't know that happened. I'm being serious. I'm not trying to make a joke out of it. So what I'm saying is, if you're having those conversations at home, you're way ahead of us. You're way ahead of us. But if you think that your kids don't understand that's happening, how about this? If your kids watch the Kardashians, how about this? This is a good test. If your kids watch the Kardashians and they've seen Caitlyn Jenner on the show, did they come to you and say, hey, wasn't that Bruce Jenner? Did they ever know that? If they haven't had that conversation with you, you should go home tonight and have the conversation. Because again, that's you doing the job that we're saying that not too many parents are doing, unfortunately. But when your kids are here for 7 hours a day, people are talking about it. So we can't ignore it. That's it. Again, I'm not saying that you all are under this impression that your kids are going to go and are going to get slammed with all this stuff. That's not what's happening. So we have to lay it out for you. And so now I'm glad we're hearing all this because we're going to make sure we really put that out there. I just want to go back. I remember what I wanted to talk about. The teacher who was performing oral sex on a banana. Okay. Believe it or not, my wife taught this class in college and she had all these devices. Okay, now these are 20-year-olds. And I said to my wife, I'll never forget, she had all this bag. She was taking a bus into the city. I'm like, if you ever get stop, this is crazy, right? And I'm saying to myself, who the heck is learning? Are these teachers, are you teaching teachers to do this? She's like, no, these are kids, all athletes, Division I school, have to take a health and whatever course it was, and this is one of the topics. I'm like, this is way too late. If you're 20 and you don't know how to do these things, you're not using them, obviously, okay? So it's way too late. However, I will tell you this, and I can't get too into it, but I can promise you, on my eyes, I promise you, what you experienced as a student, I guess, and what teacher, whoever did that, it does happen. That's the communication part, and we take care of that here immediately, trust me. Because sometimes people, not teachers, not administrators, people are stupid. They're just stupid. That was stupid, what that person did. Just not thinking. I would actually tell him or her to their face that, okay? That's not the place for this, okay? The actual actions of sexual activity is something that, well, hopefully I don't know how you would teach it either. That's the one thing, you kind of have to learn through osmosis or whatever, right? Because you don't teach that stuff, okay? But those things are learned somewhere else. Hopefully it's not in a video or whatever it is. Hopefully you do have the conversation and your children do have the ability to come to you and say, hey, Dad or Mom, how do I do this? That's a tough conversation, okay? But we do not expect that to happen here at all. And we make that very clear to all of our teachers. And I don't think anybody wants to do that here. Now, is there someone who may do that? I hope not, but I'm not naive to say it'll never happen. But we need the communication immediately. And I will tell you this, and I probably shouldn't do that as certain people here are looking at me and telling me to shut up. The kids tell us before you do. Trust me. Okay? The kids tell us before you do. But you need to make sure you tell your son and daughter, especially now because it's a hot topic. Say, listen, guys, there may be some stuff that's being talked about this year. I want you to come home and tell me what it is, and I'll talk to Dr. Tomko and we'll figure it out. But you are 100% right with that. That is absolutely not acceptable. But unfortunately, it doesn't have to be a teacher. That can happen anywhere you drop a kid off, right? Summer camps, all these places are, those things can happen. I hate to say that, but we have to be smart. I live up in Sussex County, right? I'm from here, lived in Belleville for a little bit. Grew up in Lower Bergen County, moved to Sussex County. My wife and I were there for like a year or two. My wife wanted all this farm property, whatever it is. And, we're at a little party and we're talking about, how we grew up differently, and then my kids are growing up out there. And I only had 2 children at the time. And a parent came up to me and said, wait, you asked them if they have guns, right? When you have your kids go over to the house, I'm like, what are you talking about? They have guns. Like, everybody in Sussex County has a gun. Like, everybody. Shotguns, you name it. I'm not talking about, the right to own a gun. I'm talking about, like, to hunt something right outside your, right? Never even thought of that. I feel like such an idiot. Like, everybody's got a gun in the house, might not be locked up. I really could have ruined, like, my life, I was so distraught about it, So, what I'm trying to say is that there are so many different things that we have to worry about out there, and the only way we can do that is through the communications, through at least having these conversations, and letting us kind of roll all this out to you. But thank you. I'm glad you brought that up too. That's totally understandable. And I think, unfortunately, that's a fear, right? That the kids are going to come in and we're going to start talking about, anal sex, masturbation. Here's how you masturbate. Like, that's not, that was the most ridiculous thing that was on there. Rodriguez, did you want to say something?
Ruben Rodriguez, I also have 2 kids, 2 girls, which is scary enough. Do you have statistics that you can post on that, how bad the sexual abuse cases are, whether in districts or in Essex County at the very least over the last couple of years? If it's risen, if it's gone down, if there's, because if that's what the state is telling us, that's why they need to teach this and curtail it.
Well, don't forget, this is from years ago too. Right? We're talking at least, and COVID's in there, so the numbers are a little skewed. But listen, for those of you who have some children and how they, even how social media's been, right? I mean, you go on a Twitter account now and you may, get an ad that's not appropriate, right? I mean, if you're getting them, your kids are getting them if they're on those accounts, right? So again, I just think that there's a lot more, but yeah, we can get you those stats.
And then I just have some questions about, so you said the curriculum's not even been written yet and probably won't be written until August at best. Are we hiring new staff that's going to be trained in this? Or are we handing it off to our gym teachers to teach the health? Are the teachers going to have time to learn and properly teach this without, because it seems like it's a whole new curriculum, a whole type of learning that they don't really know how to teach. I mean, you can't say poo to a 2nd grader without them laughing.
Right.
And now you're going to, you want these teachers to be able to handle that. Also, in regards to all the gender role stereotypes, all the gender non-binary, I could go into all of it. All of it is very subjective, right? I mean, we could debate on it whether or not what's subjective about it, but we have a difficult time in district teaching our kids math, which is 2 + 2 = 4, and it has been that way since the first man, needed to find 4 sticks for a fire, right? So we have a hard time teaching math successfully. How are we going to teach something that's so subjective is my question. And then one more thing I do, if a kid does, let's say a kid comes out to their teacher. A kid comes out to their teacher, says, I think I'm this, I'm so-and-so. From what I've heard, New Jersey does not require the teacher to contact a parent. And I can understand that to a degree, but at the same time, I feel like that would confuse a child more if they feel, it might push them deeper into a closet, let's say, for lack of a better term. If they feel afraid to go to their parent, that's something the parent should know. Because if my kid can't talk to me, and you and I know, I've had conversations with you about teachers telling my kid, why did you tell your parent what I said in class? And that's not okay. So that's where it kind of scares me, where I have 2 situations where my kids were, I don't want to say yelled at, but in their mind, they were, you know what kids think of yelling is almost anything. But the kids were spoken to by their teachers as to, why did you tell your father what I said in class? Or why did you tell, one person said directly, why did your father email Dr. Tomko? Why didn't he call me directly? So that's the kind of things that, we saw with COVID by watching all those, when we watched the Zooms, I think there's other people in this room that had the same situation where, we kind of scared of what you say local parentis, and I understand that, but I mean, I think what what it means to you, and what it means to some teacher who's not you think it means. And it could be, you know, again, it's very, all of this is very subjective, and that's one of my issues with a lot of it.
Okay, the only thing, the subjective part, I don't know if I really, I don't even know how to answer that really, but that's your opinion. I mean, you know, we both like the Yankees, there's people like the Mets, right? So I mean,
When I say subjective, I mean, for a child, it's confusing.
Right,
It's
okay.
confusing for a child, so it's a very confusing topic for a child. And now you want this teacher to try to explain to him, and we don't know if this teacher has been trained in a way, and they might.
Right.
Same thing, you might get a teacher that's extremely conservative, and not the same thing with the abortion thing. But
but we have to be really clear here.
The children more as well.
No, I understand, but we have to be really clear here. All that's being explained is, the word I've been using is acceptance. I mean, I think there's a fear in some people that, you know, there's going to be ideology, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I really do. And you can say that about a million things when you drop your kid off, not just that, right? There's a million things. But I think what we're saying here is that it's no longer okay in a school not to recognize people who feel they are a certain way. You know, just like I'm not going to say I don't believe in, I don't know, Italian people. You're not Italian, you know, that's so, and again, not everybody is like that. There are parents at home
We're a
that,
non-stigma school, though. We're a non-stigma school district. We work very hard
I understand
to accept
that.
everybody.
Totally understand that. Unfortunately, we're not 100% there yet. I think you know that. I mean, all you gotta do is look at some of the forums you guys are on, right? So, I mean, what I'm saying is, I think that nobody's going to come here and say, you all should be this way, that's not happening. And if you think it's happening, we need communication. But I think it's no longer going to be acceptable to not identify how certain people are. Like, for example, 2 dads in a family, or 2 moms. Some of you probably haven't talked about that at home. There's probably some parents out there, not here, because you're all here and you are involved. I'm sure you have friends that won't even talk about that, because it's no way, and they're very religious, and that's their ideology, and that's fine. But when you're in a public school, it's no longer acceptable. We accept everybody. So I will say that just to clarify for everybody here, the situation that you had with your daughters was a little different, but we took care of that right away when you told us, right? So it wasn't right.
But it's evidence of it happening.
But I think it's a little out of context. A little bit. It's a little bit out of context. So I just want to be clear, because I think everybody's gonna go back and say, look, it happened to his daughters. You know, it was a little out of context. But I agree with you. But it was just a little out of context.
And what about with contacting the parents?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if that's a lot.
Could you give her a mic so we can hear her too?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that, but we feel that Mr. Rodriguez was right, that teacher doesn't have to tell anybody about that, because
I can give you an example.
here, take the. This is Michelle.
And I don't know the law, but I'm not going to quote it because I don't know it. But what I can say is, for instance, if a student wants to be called a different name and the parents do not know that, by law, I don't think that you have to tell the parents.
Correct. That's true. That's a good analogy. Right.
But if the parents know, obviously. But the exact quoting of the law, I'd have to look up for you.
Right, but I will tell you, because this has happened here before the law is very clear, and we have talked to those individual children about telling their parents. We've had counselors say, we'll sit with you and whatnot, because we think that's an important part of it. And most of the time, it's obviously what's happening at home, right? I mean, there's not an acceptance piece there. So you know what's happening in your own home. So, you know, if you don't have a child who is, you know, bisexual, gay, lesbian, whatever it is, and you really close your eyes and think about it, what if that really did happen one day? Would they be able to come to you and tell you right away, or would you have an issue? I know you're probably saying yes, they'd be able to tell me, but I don't know. Obviously, people think that, but it's not true all the time. So, but again, that's your ideology at home. We have a question in the back. ideology at home and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, again, I think we kind of do have counselors try to talk to you about that. But that's an interesting law. There's a lot of interesting laws with your children here as they get older too, even with regard to pregnancy, right? That's another day. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Diana Ortiz. I have a second grader here in Belleville School District. Piggybacking to the parent that stated about, Mr. Shanklin indicating that if your child wants to be called by a different name, we don't have to tell the parent, and just piggybacking on what my husband said, perhaps bridging school and homes is also important in our curriculum, because if your child wants to be called, let's say his name is Adam but wants to be called Michelle, but the parent doesn't know, how can we support our children? Not saying, this is a circumstance in my home, but in general, how can we support our children if we're not bridging home and school? I think that communication, at some point, you have to create a safe space for the children to be able to get that out there and help them. In the same way that I'll piggyback on the other topics that were discussed, our jobs at home and in our curriculum is to develop self-confidence and the self-esteem in them to be able to communicate, whether they're in harm or if they're feeling a certain way or they're feeling their bodies different. So those things in teaching this entire curriculum, I believe that first and foremost, one of the main things that we should be implementing or taking into account when teaching these curriculums is that self-esteem, that confidence, that respect for self and others, that respect for our body, the bodies of others, and also to be able to communicate if they ever feel that they're being harmed or in danger by either someone, at home or in school. So those are things that I would love for, the curriculum to also take into account, because mental health and emotional and all that comes into play with sexuality.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, and that's there. We didn't go over some of those points, but when you see the whole curriculum, if you see it, that's by end of grade 2. Self-esteem, all those other things. I think you brought up 2 really good points, ma'am. The first being that you all, and again, I applaud you for being here tonight as the minority of the town, the number. Unfortunately, hopefully you all, spread the word. What we talked about tonight, your kids should come into these classes in their mind and be like, oh, I knew that already, right? Like when we talk about people aren't supposed to touch you in certain spots, oh, I knew that already, okay? So that's on you, like you said, and you're right, this should just be a reiteration of all those things that you're going to teach at home, because I am telling you, half of the kids, if you had 10 kids in a row, 5 of them wouldn't tell you certain spots that predators like to, talk about or whatever. The other thing that's really interesting that you bring up, and again, this is probably not you because you're here, but I'm just saying, when a child comes to us, whether it is pregnancy or, I want to change my name, that is the safe space coming to us, believe it or not, because they can't go home. There's no reason to come to us unless you can't go home. And I've dealt with this specifically myself 2 times here. One was almost a national event that happened with an individual who was, was identifying as a male, a female who was identifying as a male. Parents didn't know, et cetera, and we had an issue, and the safe space was us. And it was day after day of counseling, trying to convince that individual to talk with the parent. So what I'm saying is, it's not that if a child comes up and says, hey, Mrs. Jones, I want to be called this, our teachers do a pretty good job at, again, the younger they are too, some young kids have different names too, right? I want to be called a pony, I want to be whatever. So, we kind of filter that. But then as counselors get involved, most likely, more likely than not, we can work to convince the child to talk to you all about that. Again, I don't know what's happening at home though, and that's not my business, but what I'm saying is when that does happen, it tells us right away that that child feels safer here than at your house, okay? And whether you agree with that or not, if it does happen to you, you have to accept it, right? Why did you go to Dr. Tomko and not me? Because obviously, there was something that was uncomfortable, right? Now, all of you in here as parents don't think it's ever going to happen, but it will. It will. It's either going to happen to you when you decide not to talk to your kids about drinking and driving, right? Or drugs, going to a party. Like if you really think that your kid's going to go through high school and not try a drink, oh, I don't know. probably not going to happen. Vaping, right? I can tell you, I talk to middle school parents all the time. They think that my kids don't vape. What? It happens all the time. It's too accessible. There's kids that sell vapes in the middle school. Not so much here that we've had an issue with, but I'm not naive to say it doesn't happen here. But there are schools where that definitely happens. So there are issues out there that you think your child, as you sit there and you see them across the table from your dinner, you think you're having the right conversations, but they're still children. Those things are going to happen. But those are great points, ma'am. Thank you very much. You're right. The self-esteem, all that stuff, that does happen, but it has to be reiterated in different places. Please get some pizza. There's still plenty of pizza left.
Bruce Raji, I have a young man in the high school and a little boy in school 4.
Yes, sir.
He's going into the 5th grade. He has an IEP. How are you guys gonna explain these kids with the IEPs about certain things I seen in the skit that you put on for 2nd grade about gender? Now, at high school level, who's teaching this? A health teacher or biological teacher about gender?
I'm sorry. About genitals?
Gender.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said genitals. About gender.
And how are we going to handle this with the kids with the IEPs?
Right. Well, at the high school, gender, I think you could probably say that gender would be talked about in biology, or I would even maybe argue chemistry, maybe. I don't know. But definitely the phys ed and health curriculum is in phys ed and health. So your child in the high school would have one teacher throughout the entire year, and they don't learn that all year. It's just particular times of the year. For those of you who are in K through 5, is it 2 teachers or 1 teacher? 1 teacher next year. So it'll be 1 individual teacher who obviously we'll have this conversation with, we'll have training for, etc. over the summer. He or she will definitely be involved in creating the curriculum. So it's streamlined. I think probably the idea is that you all think there's 500 teachers teaching this out there, but it's really 1 individual. So again, I guess that's my answer. Did I answer?
Well, I'm sort of trying to figure out, at 2nd grade you talked about gender. Like, what are they teaching them at 2nd grade about gender? And as they move on up, if it changes about gender?
Right. Well,
and what are they teaching them about gender?
Yeah, well, I think it's just an awareness of what genders are and what gender roles are, like a definition of it.
Now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. When you say gender roles, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, again, I think we talk about familial units and how things back in the 1960s aren't the same anymore, right? Like back in the day, women didn't work. We also talk about all those kind of things too, the family unit. So it's not just the sex part that everybody's thinking about. I think everybody kind of goes to like a teacher coming in and saying, oh, this is what happens. You can become a woman if you were a man. That's not really what this is all about.
What I'm leading to is, if you start to explain to them man and female, and then as they get older, they see other aspects of life going on in front of them, and they're a little confused. Now, when you start in 2nd grade asking them telling them male, female as you're born, and you're going up the school system and you're being told something else, where, I can understand why some of these kids are confused about what's going on. And whether you're super macho man or female, doesn't matter. If you're teaching from a young age as male, female, and they're growing up, and now they're getting confused because you have different genders, and now they're like, hold on, I thought there was only male, female.
Oh, I see what you're saying, right? Yeah. Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head, because if we don't talk about exactly what we're saying here from 2nd grade up, then they will be confused. So I think you're agreeing with what we're saying. So I guess moving up, as we talk about some of those things, like, so for example, what's been in the news was the Olympic swimmer, was it Olympic swimmer? The swimmer, the transgender swimmer, right? So again, if your child knows that and has talked to you about it, I don't know what your conversation at home is, whether you agree with it or not, that's your ideology. However, the reality is, it's acceptance, right? This happened, regardless of what we think, it happened. So that's all it is here, is an identification of these things possibly happening. I think some of the fear, and I'm not saying this is you, sir, but some of the fear is that if we talk about it, like some kids may act on it or something like that. As I said in the beginning, it's happening. It's not like it's impossible to hide. And the more that we avoid it, and the less we accept it, those individuals that are feeling that way or going through that are the ones that are the most getting bullied and some of those other things we're talking about. I don't think we want that for any of our kids. Again, at home you could say, someone's born a man, someone's born a female, and we feel that this is how you should stay, we're religious, or whatever your ideology is. But the reality is that you may walk into your job and there may be somebody who has switched genders. That's just the reality today. That is both science and ideology, believe it or not. So I think what we're doing is talking about how those roles are possible and accepting them.
I understand that, because the reason why I brought it up is because I have a little guy going to 5th grade, and he's asked me that question. How can this be if you were born this way?
Right. Well,
So
I think
going through right now, I'm trying to teach him, basically saying, well, you have to accept them as a human being, and so on and so forth. Like, you want to respect everybody, male, female, or whatever.
Right.
But, like I said, he's confused, and he has an IEP.
Right.
So now that we explained all that other stuff, how are you explaining this to children with IEPs or 504s?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So again, certain students that have an IEP in those areas process those things quicker, so it's going to be each individualized plan. So that's something that we're going to have to talk about with the curriculum, but I'm glad you brought that up. We can definitely get back to you on that because we haven't written it yet, but you definitely just piqued my interest on that, so we'll make sure, that's why this forum was perfect, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
So my name is Joanna Velez. My son goes to 7. I'm first time here.
Hi.
Hi. All these parents brought up amazing points, but I do have a son as well that is going into 3rd grade that has an IEP as well. He is currently on medication, and right now it's hard for him to focus with just school alone. Adding these curriculum, I feel like he's going to be a little bit more confused. There was another point that a gentleman brought as well, that right now at these early ages, these children really need to learn how to accept, how to love on each other, and just be open on other perspectives of life. Have we even asked children or wonder how these children are going to feel of this type of curriculum being taught to them? So my son brought to my attention that a little girl in his class had called him gay. And he came to me and he asked me, Mommy, such and such said I'm gay, and he caught him. And I said, go ahead, say it. And he's like, gay. I said, well, I know, but why did she say that? Oh, because I'm always with such and such. And she says, so I had to sit down and have an explanation. He didn't learn that from my household. The same way that another 6-year-old told him one time to stick his middle finger up on the bus, he didn't learn that from my house. So as a parent, as us being parents with young elementary students, it's difficult and hard to understand how, if it's difficult for me as his mother and father to teach him these things, are these people gonna, or excuse me, are these teachers gonna teach them as well, like how we would teach them, or is it just straightforward? You know, are the children's feelings gonna be into consideration as well? I think that's my main point, especially with a child that has an IEP.
Right, those are a few good points you bring up there. I think to kind of put everyone at ease, it's more of a straightforward kind of thing. The curriculum's not new, by the way. This curriculum's been around forever. The parts that are piquing the interest of everyone are new. Okay, but we've always talked about, self-esteem and stranger danger and all those things, but there are certain points that are newer, so I know that's the concern. But you bring up a good point, but I think we keep reiterating the same thing as to saying why this is important for everybody else, because you said on the head, we didn't teach my kid this, but somebody else did. So, well, thank you. So, who's doing that job? And unfortunately, parents aren't doing that, So, through the test of time, the schools have had to help parents educate students. I think the governor or whomever identified some areas that we really need some help in, but that's where that opt-out becomes important for you. And we need to make sure that that's in an area. So if you do have a child with an IEP, who you don't think can handle this right, or shouldn't even be, shouldn't be talking about anal sex or whatever that comes up in 8th grade or whatever it is, you should say, he's not ready, and, you know, we're not going to put them in a room and, like, you guys are the bad kids, you know, we'll have to figure out some kind of, something that's creative or whatnot, but I think that's the important part is that communication again. So if you don't feel he or she's ready, then, you know, that's your choice as a parent, so.
Are we going to be able to get an opinion on elementary students
No. The question was, are we going to get an opinion on the elementary students? No, that's, I don't really know how we can get,
because they're not going to understand the question, so my thing is how.
yeah, I think that's a good answer, right? I mean, they're not going to understand the question, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know what again, I'm a different parent than all of you, but my house is really not democratic. Like when we do something, my wife and I make the decision. So we're here talking to all the decision makers about the curriculum, getting feedback. You accepted you elected a Board of Education to either approve or not approve this, and you voted for them. They represent 1/7 of all of you. We're going to write this with them. And then after that, you have the ability to opt out. So that's it. To get kids in a room and say, hey guys, you know, here, we're going to teach about this, what do you think? I mean, I guess it's all important who I put in the room too, right? If you put me in the room and I go, what do you think about this? Kids are like, no. If I put somebody really bubbly in there, right? We don't want to manipulate that either. So this really isn't a conversation for kids to have as we develop this, I don't think. I think it's more for the parents. So that's again, I don't need to be curt with that answer, but we really don't ask kids of that age. You know, we ask them if they want chicken nuggets, we do that kind of stuff, you know. You probably don't like some of that too. But for something like this, it's really not a discussion. Yes, sir. Come on, Alex, let's go. You're a young kid, you should be running around back there.
Thank you, Alex. Before coming here, you know, and just hearing certain things, you know, that were going to be discussed, I was honestly engaged. Coming in here, I'm very open, listening to everything that's going on. So, you know, we put our trust in you.
Absolutely.
First and foremost.
Oh, I listen.
You know, we send our kids to school, we entrust you with our child, you know, for 8 hours of the day, and just hope for the best, right? And hope that they get educated. Hope that they learn. Hope that they have good takeaways. They learn morals and values at home, but then you take on some of that stuff and you drive it home, right? My biggest thing is, like the lady said in the front, it's like my kid is 8 years old. He still believes in Santa Claus. Sure. He believes in the Tooth Fairy. I want to protect his innocence. You come in with like certain things and it's like, our children, we all know this, they're sponges. So once you spark up something, it's gonna lead to curiosity. And this is, I think everybody here feels the same, that once you spark that curiosity, whether or not we try and maintain it and try and, you know, navigate through that, they're gonna try and find the answers on their own. And, you know, children are children. I don't want my son growing up faster than he don't need to, because we're like, hey, we gotta tackle this, we gotta get ahead of this, and we gotta do this.
Great.
I just want to make sure that it's given, you know, slowly and, you know, like a baby.
Yes.
Crawl, walk, run. Excellent. Let's do it the right way. Regardless, you're gonna do your thing. In August, you're gonna come up with something. Right. But at the end of the day, I really want us all, because we're all here today because it's important to us, but I want to make sure that we're part of this, and we're part of the talks right now, but I think that's important that we're part of the talks in August to say, hey, this looks good, this doesn't look good, because in reality, you're going to say what you want, and a lot of that stuff may be good, but one or two things may rub us the wrong way, and then we'll end up opting out completely, you know? And like I said, I'm open to some of the stuff, but I don't want to opt out because you may have snuck something in, or you may have done something that I don't, feel okay with it.
Right.
You know, we were in the pandemic for 2 years, and the biggest thing was our kids' education, and it's kind of taken a back seat. And coming into the second grade, you know, they weren't getting I don't want to say that they weren't getting the right education that they should have, but going from home to classroom was a big adjustment, right? So getting back, you know, to the roots and learning math, science, history, that's what's important, you know? Putting other things, my biggest thing was back in the days, hey, music class. I don't hear that no more. That's important to me.
Right.
You know, like learning those extracurricular activities. You know, I was brought up in a neighborhood where it was 90-95% black. I was the only Hispanic in my neighborhood, in my building, and I was considered, in all honesty, I was looked at as white. So, you know, it's learning how to, you know, once again, I don't want to keep on repeating myself, but it's learning how to love each other and learning how to accept each other. I think, you know, discrimination has always been a big thing,
Right.
and you know, whenever I notice, like, every time you talk, you're like, 2 men together, 2 husbands together. But I think if we embrace the whole encompass of accepting, you know, different races, different people that might have different religions, and you can slowly, that's how we gradually, you know, feed it to these kids where they can accept everybody. And that's where, you know, like, if you're gay, you're this, you're that, yes, okay. But you're doing it gradually. But if you're just doing, hey, it's this people and that people only, what about everybody else?
Great, right.
So
No, I
that's,
agree.
that's
But
my
I think okay, let me just clarify a few things. So when I first got here, there was hardly any diversity programs in Belleville. We had no bilingual secretaries. There was a bunch of stuff. So we've come a very long way. So I think we've done an incredible job of, you know, meshing the cultures, the other religions. You know, I'm not saying we don't have any bias problems here ever, but for lack of a better term, we've done a really good job of moving forward in that. So tonight specifically, I don't want you to think that this is only going to be about that, but I think tonight the main reason, I don't think people are here to talk about different cultures. People here because they're worried about certain terms. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. I just want to clarify for, you know, so when this goes on YouTube later, people don't think, you know. But you did say a few things that are really, really interesting, and I appreciate everybody here tonight. There are thousands and thousands of pages of curriculum for all different stuff that we do, right? So it's not just this. So I don't want everybody to think that this is like, we've been waiting, you know. This is also 2020. This conversation started in 2020 when everybody was home. Right, and the state was like, well, we're not going to bring this up now because nobody's here, right? So we're really aware of, there are kindergarten kids, right, that have never been in school, right? So and if you have a second grader, you know what I'm talking about. So we're very cognizant of that too. I also probably shouldn't say this, but I will because I really don't care at this point in my career. But our team that is writing this, the main individuals that are here, all have children of our own, all right? I'm not saying that you have to have children, but I think it's important when you're writing this to put yourself in your seats, right? And I will tell you that we are going to write this, and I think they're all very nervous, even shake their heads right now, but we're going to write this as antiseptic as possible, meaning it's going to have like zero flavor to it, meaning, you know, if we have to identify a term, we're going to identify the actual real term and make sure that's what your children learn if they have to learn it. Not the street term. Now, there is a component of that in like 11th or 12th grade where when we talk about some more, you know, sexual topics, the street terms are brought up. That's not for a long time, okay? However, we're going to write it in such a way that it is just identifying, defining, etc., because we understand that this really isn't our spot. It's not our spot. It's your spot to do that. So the other thing I will say is that since in my entire career I've never made a snap decision or anything like that. We've always taken everybody's, you know, I'm not just here tonight because I have nothing to do. I'm actually listening to everything you're saying. I'm understanding all of it. It's nothing different than I didn't think of anything differently except some of the IEP stuff, some of those other things. Obviously the communication has to continue after we roll this out to you, right? Because if you don't like something, contact us immediately, and we'll have a conversation about it, and maybe we could explain it a little bit better to you individually, etc. The other thing too is the curriculum is a living, breathing document. Okay? It could be changed at any time. So even if August comes and we do something, which I can't imagine, but if there is a Belleville thing that we need to change because of this, we will absolutely consider it, bring it to the board. This board is very active, probably one of the more active boards I've ever been with. Sometimes too active, but that's all right. But for something like this, it's important, right? And you all know who they are, and they're the lightning rod, and they're on social media, and that's fine. And they tell me everything, which is important, because I can't be on social media, I can't, you know. But I have, some of you have had conversations with me, some of you have had arguments with me. They're not bad arguments, they're just, you know, disagreements. I get back to everyone I can within a certain amount of time, the quickest amount of time I can, and you could all call me tomorrow. The next day, send me your thoughts on an email, what you'd like to see. Highlight things in the curriculum that you don't like and send them to us. And I promise you we'll look at it, we'll take it into consideration. Because again, even though I love all of your kids, and that's why I do it still, and I tell all my administrators, when it's not about the kids anymore, you have to pack your stuff up and go, right? They're still your kids, right? They're your kids. So I can reiterate things, I can help you get them to certain places. You know, Belleville gets a horrible rap or rep for our test scores and our grades and stuff like that. But again, I think you're looking at the aggregate of things that have occurred here over the past 15 years. No preschool in town. Our preschool universe was under 10%. We're at 90% now. In about 10 years, you're going to see that flow of getting students in pre-education. You know, we're starting something called the Conception to Cradle program in town. We're going to start with parents who are just becoming families and get them some services, some things that they need. So all these things that we're putting out to you are really helping to, you know, put Belleville on the map. All these extracurriculars, you know, the board has made a major investment in an outdoor training facility for the community as a community center. All these things are going to help the social, emotional wellness and academics of students, because that's what happens, right? We're trying to bring back some more recreation sports and clubs, or help the town do that, because we're done with COVID, right? Nobody should be in a room anymore. We're seeing kids starting to interact a little differently. We knew some things would get a little bit dicey at times because kids forgot how to interact with each other, right? And that's a real thing. We had learning loss, but the thing I say to you is that, you know, we just had a senior awards night the other night, and we had students, we had students get full rides to Harvard. We had a girl go to the Naval Academy last year. There's things happening here that we all need to celebrate, and those things can happen, and I know you know that, but I still think that something like this, we're one of the only townships or districts that are doing something like this tonight that I know of. That's why we had superintendents in the audience listening who left, and a few other people that didn't want to be identified. Because they wanted to see like how I would present this to all of you. And I present this to all of you, and maybe we'll end on this and I'll hang for a while, but as this is our thing, right? It's not my thing, it's not my team, it's our thing. So our job, and we're hired, you know, I'm hired by the board, and I hire my team who has an expertise in this area, and we don't agree with some of the things that were brought here, and we're going to listen to you tonight, we're going to listen to all the emails we got, and we're going to write this in such a way where I think you're going to be happy about it. But if you're not, you have to let us know, right? We've never been, you know, against being challenged or changing things. I've changed a million things since I've been here. I also am very apt to say when I'm wrong. I'm wrong, okay? I was wrong, sorry. I mean, I said I'm sorry. We all have that moment, right? But again, it's the communication. So communicate with us. You guys easily, we're on the website. Obviously, you can email me. Mr. Sheldon, did you want to say something?
Yes, I'll keep it brief. Shall we put the microphone on?
Oh, if you have it for a public or okay. And then,
Thank you. Firstly, I want to thank you for conducting this very important and informative forum. I'm sure everyone in the audience and those who left appreciate your time tonight. A little while ago, there was some discussion about any research indicating the incidence of gay children in a multi-children household. There was a very important study released, I think, just about 3 years ago from the Harvard School of Public Health. What that revealed is that in a home with multiple male children, each subsequent male child had a 33% chance of being gay relative to the predecessor. Of course, Stephen Colbert had an interesting comment to make about this. For those of you who may not know, Stephen Colbert is the 11th child in an 11-child household. He's the 7th of 7 boys. So when he discussed this research study, he said, I guess that makes me 233% gay, which, interesting bit of math there. But what I wanted to ask you to do for the edification of the community, online there's been a lot of discussion, incorrect discussion, that it's the trustees that write the curriculum. You said at the beginning of the evening you identified staff members who actually are the curriculum writers. So it's not the trustees that write the curriculum. Trustees have the final say whether a curriculum gets approved. But beyond that, the trustees, as well as all of the staff, have a legal obligation to align whatever curriculum is adopted by Belleville with the state. The state generates the learning standards, and then it's up to you to tweak and modify that. You can select what textbooks you want to use, the sequence of how things are presented, but you and the trustees don't have the wholesale authority to say, we just don't like this curriculum, so we're going to reject it because you can't do that. If you do that would be an egregious ethics violation, and all hell would break loose from the state, from the Commissioner of Education, if the board and you had the hubris to say, we just don't like your curriculum guidelines, we're not going to follow them. So I would like you to comment briefly about that, if you would, and talk about explicitly what the role is of the trustees in approving curricula. I just don't want you and the trustees, having been a former trustee myself, to incur any unnecessary flack. As you said a few moments ago, the trustees are the lightning rods, and I don't want the trustees to have to waste a lot of time and develop the anger from community members that you're not being responsive to the legitimate concerns of community members. There's a certain set of guidelines, protocols that trustees have to abide by. As I pointed out online on Facebook when this was a hot topic the other day, if you look at the Code of Ethics for school board members, the very first part of it says, I will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to the schools. Desired changes shall be brought about through legal and ethical procedures. And then on top of that, if you go to the another part of state law, this is the administrative code, and I can give the actual citation here if anyone wants to check this. This is 6A:23A-5.1. Part H says here, this shows you just how much power the DOE commissioner has. It says nothing shall preclude the commissioner from immediately and summarily withholding state aid, consistent with NJSA 18A:55-2, if at any time it is determined the fiscal practices, actions, or expenditures of a school official, district board of education member, district board of education, or any other party under the commissioner's jurisdiction are in violation of any statute, regulation, rule, or directive of the State Board of Education commissioner. So in other words, you know, if a Board of Ed went rogue, and I understand there's at least one district in New Jersey, I believe that's the Garwood district in this in Union County, just wholesale said we're rejecting this curriculum, we're not going to have it. You run the risk of commissioner not only moving to, theoretically the commissioner could bring ethics charges against all those trustees, wholesale dismiss the entire board, and if he or she really wants to press the issue, they can say, we're going to rescind your state aid. In the case of Belleville, that's $38.5 million plus all the pre-K. So you're looking at upwards of $50 million. That is, yes, it's a crux, it's leverage, but You know, the state means business. If the trustees are here to execute the mandate of the commissioner of the board, the DOE, the Board of Ed does not tell the state how you're going to conduct business. So I've babbled on long enough, but I would like you just to, confirm what I've said so that everyone here is on the same page as the scope of responsibilities and authorities of yourself and the Board of Ed. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sheldon. So just to reiterate very quickly, how curriculum works is, we do get a skeleton or a backbone or a framework, is probably a better word, of the standard from the Department of Education, which is what I showed you parts of up here in the white boxes. Right? It says by the end of this, all the numbers we were talking about. At the end of grade 2, this will happen or this will happen. How we approach that or how we design lessons around that is what our team puts together. And we do also solicit help from teachers, by the way, who help us write the curriculum. So after this meeting, we'll take all of your thoughts. We'll start to put some of our thoughts together. We'll then have teachers help us write lessons and tweak this a little bit to meet the needs of the local education agency, because the Department of Education is always like it's a local issue, right? To make sure that, we kind of listen to what you said tonight and do some of the things that we talked about, maybe not use some of those examples, right? Stuff like that. So that's how that goes. After we do that, I then bring that to a board committee of 3 individuals who sit on the curriculum committee. We sit down, we go over all the curriculums with them. They then, have some of their input. We finalize that, and then we bring it to the full board for a vote. So the whole idea is that after we come out of committee, I should have at least 3/7 of the community in agreement with us for what we wrote. That's the theory behind it. And the full board approves that. Again, most of the time, I'm going to be completely frank and honest with you. It's not something that we announce to the public. It's not something, curriculums are out there. There are curriculums on for this Monday's meeting that I'm sure maybe some of you aren't aware of. Maybe you don't follow the board meetings, that's fine. But for something like this, we will definitely bring it to your attention. But I will say, it will be in the summer. So, some of us are down at shore, etc. So just kind of, keep looking at those emails, touch base with us, say, hey, how's it going with the curriculum? If you see something, if you see another township doing something, send me the article. Again, it's communication. It doesn't bother us at all. Maybe you're showing us something that we didn't think of. The opportunity tonight to talk about IEPs piqued my interest. Not that we weren't talking about that, but I think it's something that we really have to maybe make a specific lesson plans for or whatnot. So basically, that's how that process works. But yes, we have a responsibility to follow what the Department of Education and the State Board of Education established, but we do have the ability to formulate lesson plans in our own manner. That's why every district's going to be different. That's why with the masking policies, everybody was different. Opening up, everybody was different. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I think tonight, hearing what all of you have said, and I know I'll continuously get email comments from you, hopefully, and spread it to your friends. We'll get this done the right way. We have 2 more questions. But can we just, sorry, just because Alex is right there.
I'm Joe.
How are you, sir?
I'm Joe Fantozzi with a 2nd grader in school 10.
How are you?
Excellent, unbelievably fantastic. Your forum has been great, I think, for the last hour and a half. All of us feel that this particular curriculum is going to be like the entire day of school. So what exactly is it? Is it a class for 1 semester that they take once a week, twice a week, like music, for instance, where they, if they opt in, we'll go that route. And then the second question is, I'm sure you're aware of the man that was arrested that was at the school board meeting because his daughter was raped in a male and a female bathroom. We're going to teach the kids now about different capable sexes. All of us here, as I can tell from, based on our ages and our, looks, I've been in school, and there's always been 2 genders. There's a male and there's a female. Unless you have the ability to have a hysterectomy, you are a male. There's no other way around it. No matter what you think you are, no matter where you go, you will always be a male, just like the swimmer you talked about. Now, in regards to the bathrooms, since this is now a new concept for you, when we all grew up, we had a boys' room, we had a girls' room. When we played sports at the Little League field, there's a boys' room and there's a girls' room. When we go to church, there's a boys' room, there's a girls' room. Are you gonna introduce a third room, kind of like what the mall does, like a family room? If you are trans and you want to go into that bathroom to feel safe, great. If you're a male and want to go in there and you feel safe, great. If you're a girl and you want to go in there and feel safe, that's great. I just don't want my 8-year-old daughter to turn 10 and have a boy who's been told that he can be a female if he wants the next day because of whatever reason, and then shows up in a dress and happens to follow my daughter into the girls' room and ends up raping her, because then there will be real problems. It's those two issues that I really have, that I want to know about.
I don't even know how to really answer that. Getting into ideology and stuff like that, so I'm trying to be careful not to do that. But you know, that happens just not here, right? It's everywhere. So I'm just pointing that out, right? If your daughter goes to the mall when she's a little older, you know, even prior to all this, you know, people can use different bathrooms. Not that they did, we thought they didn't, but you know, predators do lurk in those areas. So I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just saying that I think of that stuff too, right? We do have transgender students in district. They do utilize separate bathrooms in certain buildings, and there is an awareness of classes that have those. But I will say, if someone identifies, I think the law is pretty clear. If someone identifies one way, they can utilize that bathroom. But that's just not in Belleville. That's everywhere you go. So I think the way to try to stop some of that is that they have these family bathrooms now and these third bathrooms. So we have looked at a lot of that. But those of you who have elementary students, which all of you do, realize the bathroom issues we had, right, for the past year with the portable bathroom. So we're trying to build as many bathrooms as possible. But that is a consideration. But I think just to kind of clarify that comment at the end that you made, and as a father, I know exactly what you're talking about. But again, you know. Again, not naive to say this is a completely safe place at the schools. We obviously, that's the main priority for us. But as your child goes out into other places, those things are realities too. So I think it's important that, you know, when you talk about those things and you think about those things, if you're going to send your child to the mall or somewhere, you know, those are realities. Maybe we have a little better control over it, but, you know.
They've instituted the family bathroom.
But you don't have to use that. Yeah, no, I understand that. There is a family bathroom, but I don't have to use it. I don't have to use the family bathroom. If I'm a male and I think I'm a female, that's how I feel, I can use the ladies' room. That's the law now.
Even with having male genitalia?
Doesn't matter.
And just sit down on the bowl and...
No, it doesn't matter. So that's what I'm saying. And again, obviously ideology is different. I don't agree with it either, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that just to kind of make everybody comfortable, you should use that third bathroom possibly. But again, the reality is that doesn't just happen here. That's in different places. That's like a legal thing. That's not a here thing. But we do a really good job here of making sure that doesn't happen. We have had unauthorized individuals in other bathrooms in my entire career. Right? There are boys that run into girls' rooms and girls that run into boys' rooms, and you know, I mean, unfortunately, that's a discipline infraction. I'm not saying that anything happened in there, but not allowed. But again. You know, we try to handle that. We have monitors, etc. We really haven't had any issues here with any of our students that are.
Because you haven't started the curriculum yet.
Yeah. So the curriculum, but the bathroom issue has been pre-COVID. So this curriculum will have nothing to do with that. Children have been transgender here pre-COVID in classes. We actually had a student who was a runner-up for, I think, Miss Belleville, who was transgender, who came in second place, I believe. That was 2 years before COVID, I think. So this curriculum is not creating that. This curriculum may be talking about it a little more, maybe it comes up. I don't even know if that's in there, though. The bathroom piece, I have to look at that, but we'll look at that a little more as I'm going through it.
Thank you. I had a question about, like, let's say we have to do the opt-out thing, which I really hope we can do an opt-in thing, but if we have to do an opt-out thing, what if I choose not to opt out, or any parent chooses not to opt out, and then the child becomes uncomfortable in the middle of a situation, in the middle of a conversation? Can the child get up and leave without any repercussions?
Yeah. I'll tell you all right now that your child should do that with anything. I mean, in life, I've had, again, not telling stories about me, but I had one of my daughters, a teacher wasn't letting her go out to the bathroom, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. And I told her just get up and walk out and have the teacher call me if there's an issue with that, right? Because again, sometimes we do things for certain reasons, and I have to be able, as the chief school administrator, to understand why those things are happening or why you're saying it. But if your child feels not comfortable in math class right now for some reason, they should say, you know, I need to go to the office right now, I'm going to the office. And they walk out. And if the teacher says, why, I'm not letting you go there, then your top child just walks out. Nobody's going to grab your child, you know, and that's a whole different story. But that should be for anything, not just this. But yeah, I would say particularly for this, if they're not comfortable in something, then they should be able to walk out, yeah. Okay, and to follow that up, all right, so we can opt out. Let's say it's against our religious beliefs. Whatever's being discussed is not something that we align with our beliefs. And then it's integrated into other things. Like, for instance, we use Prodigy Math. And I don't know if you're aware, but Prodigy Math has now changed all of their lingo. And instead of he and she, or boys and girls, they put binary and non-binary. So the question, a math question would be, there are 20, I don't know, students in the class, 5 are binary, and whatever, 4 are non-binary. It's now no longer an opt-out. This is surrounding our kids. The verbiage is referring to things that maybe are against people's political beliefs or whatever, personal beliefs, religious beliefs. If it's against their religious beliefs, and then in math, their kids have to deal with, instead of just saying there are 10 pieces of fruit in the bowl, and not even using it as an example. So how do we go about opting out when our kids are surrounded by it, even in math? Or, like I said, my 7-year-old on his Epic Chromebook has the book called Jack Not Jackie. Like, how can we possibly opt out of things like that when it's surrounding them? So there's no, I think what it says in that statement, there's no opt-out for anything other than that curriculum. So the Prodigy Math, there would be no opt-out available. And I think that goes back to the acceptance piece, like the they, that, whatever. It's just, that's the way people want to be identified. So that's, I don't want to say unfortunately it's the way of the world, but that's just the way it is. I mean, even on, when your child goes to college, all the professors in every college, I know, they always say, identify he, him, or her, and here's why. And almost every college has accepted that now. So again, these are just acceptance things. I don't think that calling somebody they is an ideology thing. You know, I mean, if right now if I tell you right now that I want to be they, if I just want to be they, well, you shouldn't say I'm crazy. But that's not right though. That's not right though. That's no, okay. So hold on a second. So the example was me saying I want to be called they because I'm not sure how I'm feeling right now from a guy or a girl, versus me saying I want to be a horse. That example is a little bit stretched out. I'm just being honest. I mean, I'm obviously not a horse. Might be like big as a horse or way like a horse, but again, that's a little different, but because I feel a certain way, that's really not your decision. Just like it's not my decision to tell your child how they should identify. So, and that's like any kid who just changes their name. As an adult, you know, there comes a time where they could change their name legally. You have no say about it. I don't know. I think that's the only thing tonight I think I'm going to disagree with people on is that, because again, I could go around and saying I don't believe people are a certain culture. I don't recognize that culture. You know, you can't do that. If someone says, I'm a they, then that's the acceptance of it. No, that's not your reality, ma'am. I agree with you, it's not your reality. No, see, you just totally hit on the head, though. And this, I didn't want to get into debate on this, but you just totally hit on the head. You just said that's not reality. Absolutely can. Absolutely can. Why can't I? So again, that's your opinion, which is fine. No, it's not the reality. It's not. Okay, again, your opinion, or your reality is one way, it's not. Okay. So, we'll agree to disagree on that, if that's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Rosa. I have a first grader, and I also do have a kid in high school. So I understand that in high school that some kids might go into the other bathrooms, but for my first grader going to be a second grader, number one, they didn't get kindergarten. So they're missing a whole lot of learning. And then to have a 7-year-old boy in the bathroom with a 7-year-old girl, that makes no sense. I understand in high school because they know more, but shoving it down the second graders through, gender identity and stuff like that, I think that's just a little too much. I understand to explain to them that the parents, and this one might have 2 fathers, this one might have 2 mothers, that's absolutely fine. But for them to be put in their head that they can question their own gender, listen, if you want to have a special classroom for the kids who feel that way, and maybe you could go talk to a counselor, 100%. But for my daughter to be sitting in a class or in a bathroom and a boy walks in, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, that's not, okay, so don't forget, first and second grade, they're monitored and going to the bathroom regardless of when the whole group goes, so.
I'm sorry, I grew up in New York,
Yeah.
so in New York it was very different. So like in New York, we had a gay and lesbian club in junior high school and stuff like that. But for me, I don't know how Belleville's district is, and learning with my stepdaughter has an IEP, and they try to teach her sex ed, and she refuses. We get phone calls saying, I don't want this lady to tell me this. So, you know, I'm getting 2 different aspects of a first grader and an 11th grader with an IEP. And it's kind of scary. Like this guy said, his daughter's 8 years old, and you guys keep going, well, yeah, in high school, but what about us elementary parents who have little babies that don't want my daughter to see a penis in the bathroom? That's not fair.
Where are the rights of the parents?
I think I answered that. I don't really know where or why that's.
Your answer was, well, we have bathrooms and everybody can go in the bathroom.
Yeah, but it wasn't, I don't.
If I would have known that little boys are going in the same bathroom as my daughter, I would have a problem with that. Because she also does go to summer camp, and at the camp, they have the open bathrooms, but like you said, they do monitor it, but you never know. You never know if at one point, they're just gonna let everybody do whatever they want, and then we're gonna have more sexual harassment cases, and that's why they wanna identify, oh, you're being touched here, being touched here, because it's gonna start happening in schools, because you're just opening it up to happen here. This is supposed to be a safe place for kids, not something where they're gonna learn a whole different LGBT. Listen, I have family members. I did things in high school, but that was my age range. You're teaching it to 7-year-olds in the second grade who missed kindergarten, missed a whole year of kindergarten because of COVID. So now I had to argue with teachers who took away her value. Like, it's just too much. It's just too much for a 7-year-old to bring in him in mind. They have shows. The odd parents have gay parents. I've explained it to her. She knows. She's had 2 kids at the camp, 2 little girls that were little boys, and I explained to her, listen, you choose. But for her to be in the class and have somebody teaching this to them, and who knows if the kid next to them is even comfortable with it. Everybody's different when it comes to certain things, especially at a younger age.
Thank you. I mean, you're giving a lot of hypotheticals here. You really are. I mean, and I appreciate that. We talked about second graders running in, and you know, I mean, those are. I'm again not naive to think that students are not using the same. Again, we have bathrooms available or nurses stations for those students that are identified. That second graders, we're not really experiencing that issue. I think what all of you are doing is, and I think a gentleman over here brought it up first, and I didn't get to answer it, sir. This is not every day when you come in 5 hours a day we're talking about this. These are single units that will probably be a few days, maybe throughout the entire year. And again, we haven't even written it yet, so I understand one second. I understand you're excited and all about it, but let's kind of write it out and discuss it. Some of the things that your own opinions and ideologies are and stuff like that are, are things that you're never going to change, and that's fine. Nobody's here to change it. I honestly really don't care what your ideology is. But what I'm saying is, as I said for the entire thing, it's acceptance. People do have the right, just like you have the right, people have the right to feel that way. Now what you're saying is a totally different thing. You're talking about, you brought your daughter in there too. Mr. Rhodes is here, you should probably talk to him before you leave, with regard to the sex ed classes in high school. Totally different conversation. That's why we couldn't have K-12 tonight, because it's a totally different conversation. But for the bathroom situations that you're talking about and whatnot, if you're not familiar with those procedures, that's, now that we have a couple, weeks left, but we can definitely tell you what's been going on and how your child goes to the bathroom.
They had porta potties, so they were using the porta potties.
Well, yeah, but that.
The thing is, though, you're teaching them the introduction of gender identity. So these kids who are going through these feelings, now you're giving them to discover, oh, maybe I am a boy, maybe I am this, and maybe I do want to go use the girls' bathroom, where if you didn't introduce it to them, it wouldn't be in their mind.
I don't agree with that at all. But that's just me disagreeing with you. I don't agree that talking about something makes somebody do it. I don't agree with that at all. So I think a lot of that comes from, one, how you are scientifically, which is another, argument, I guess, which was not for tonight. And number two, your home, how you deal with it at home, how you talk about these things at home is how your children are going to respond to those things. So again, am I hearing?
I'm worried about other people's kids too.
Why are you worried about other people's kids?
Because you know what, my daughter goes to school and talks to kids. And she has friends, and we're teaching them one thing, and somebody else is saying, well, that person shouldn't be gay, this and that. Then my daughter's gonna come to me and go, Mommy, you told me that I have to accept everybody. So now it's just bringing a bunch of conflict.
No, but I think we're on the same page, man, because what we're saying is everybody has to accept everybody. So you're actually saying...
We're on the same page, but other people aren't.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get everybody on the same page, where at home you can say whatever you want, but when we're in here, everybody has to accept each other for what they want to be, whether they're this color, this religion, this whatever, they don't eat meat on Friday, they do. I mean, people like, that's weird too, right? I mean, we have different religions that do different things. So I think we're saying the same thing, and I think with your last response, what we're doing to write that and put that in there so everybody's on the same page is exactly the support that we need, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No, I support you guys completely. I just think the second grade with gender identity is just a little...
Totally. Ms. Shanklin's taking copious notes over here, so we're going to look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. No, I got it. Okay, thanks.
So,
All jacked up from the code.
one last one from me. Now, I understand you got to go through the board once you put this curriculum together. Are we going to look at this curriculum before or after the board?
So I'm going to be very careful about how we say this, because sometimes, unfortunately,
because we could be all on board before, and then the board kind of, hey, let me put this in, let me put that in, let me put this in, and we're all on board, and then you bamboozled us.
No, I totally get it. I totally get it. So let me just say this, and now I'll speak kind of out of turn, because you said two things now, which are good things that make me think of it. This board and me, I've been doing this a very long time. I try to be and a lot of people don't like this word, but I try to be as transparent as possible. I know a lot of people think that we try to hide things and things like that. Certain things have to be confidential for personnel reasons, and sometimes when you sit out there, you can't believe some of the decisions we make up here as a board, but most of this work is done the month prior. For something like this, that is such a hot button topic, I could say to everybody here faithfully that I'm a seasoned enough administrator to make sure you all definitely see it before this board votes on it. Trust me, okay? I may not be good at a lot of things, but it's one thing I am good at. So you will definitely see it. You will definitely have the ability to speak about it before the board votes on it in public forum, which will be at that board meeting. But I can also say this board has been completely involved in this process already before tonight, right? Because there are several board members that have actually talked to me about this ad nauseum with regard to some of the changes and some of the things we should do and other things like that. So I personally think from what I heard tonight and from how we're going to write this, we are all very close to being on the exact same page. You may have some ideas that we haven't thought of yet. That's why I said, you see a friend or a district do something, send it to us so we can kind of incorporate it. Again, we're not trying to take the parenting away from you. We're not trying to, we don't want to do that, but we want to make sure that we have these standards that we have to follow, and we give our teachers enough guidance as to what they can and cannot say, so as not to go into your houses, basically. And again, the whole idea of having a limited amount of teachers is so we don't have to worry about 25, 35 people talking in different classes. So it's just going to be a few teachers that we're dealing with. So again, I think we go back to that second slide, communication, right? It can't stop tonight. You all are obviously very well vested in this, so you have to continue to communicate with me on this, whether it's your opinion or not, or you agree with it or agree with me or whatever it is. Again, most of you, like I said, it doesn't really matter really. My ideology has nothing to do with this. I have to follow what's here. But now listening to the community, and where, you know, we're going to make sure obviously the opt-out is very clear. We're going to make sure those lessons are very clear. The ones that are very confrontational are very clear. We're going to make sure you have an awareness of when that is. We have a new system going in, Power School, a new student information system, which will be able to identify things with you quicker, better communication, something called Schoology, which is sort of like a parent platform that we'll be using, so you'll all be aware of that. So I think it'll work out. I just ask that you kind of give us a chance, give us the ability to prove to you that we could you know, make sure that you could remain the parents in topics like this, and then just keep the communication open.
I just want to say one last thing. I know I said that before, but if we're going to opt out, I think it's very important that you give us something that we can at least transition to for our kids. I mean, like they said, someone said it earlier, we don't want them in a library. We don't want them like sitting there, not doing anything. Let's make sure that we use their time constructively and they're still gaining some type of knowledge.
I absolutely agree. Mr. Sheldon, maybe the last question, and then I'll...
Sure. Just to allay some community concerns, it might help for you to remind the community that before the board takes any action on approving a curriculum, all of that information is posted on board docs. It's there on the agenda for everyone to read. You put the entirety, the totality of any curriculum proposals online prior to each board meeting, so that every stakeholder has a chance to see the details. So there's nothing underhanded being done here. There is, in this case, full transparency. So people, if they really want to see what the board is about to approve, they can, Saturday night, Saturday morning, 12:01 a.m., I'm always there, but there's one probably to look at the agenda, but all of those details are made publicly available at least 48 hours before the board meeting. So it's there for the taking. What you have to do is visit board docs.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's online. And again, if you want to look at the curriculums for this meeting as well, they'll be online, so you can see that. Those are high school curriculum. So thank you very much. I will remain here. There's pizza, there's sandwiches. Please take some stuff home. Thank you all for coming. My superintendent at BellevilleSchools.org is the email, but you can always call me. So whatever you guys need, please keep the communication open. Thank you very much. Have a great summer. Hope to see you guys on Monday night at our board meeting. So thank you.